there's a drugging issue in Austin. I was drugged at a bar on 6th Street once. Yeah, and they're disappearing and winding up in the lake, whether they're being mugged or killed or what's going on there, I don't know, but they've all pretty much been men, and a lot of them have been white or Hispanic men. And not every one of the deaths is totally related, but there's been a series of deaths that have been very suspicious and are probably murders. Fuck it, we'll do it live.
We'll do it live. So I just watched your Man on the Street interview with the comedians in Kill Alley behind Kill Tony. And for people who don't know what Kill Tony is, and I'm sure if people are listening to this podcast, like I've spoken about Kill Tony, a good amount of people will know, but it's this live comedy podcast where comedians from all around the world go up and they put their names in a bucket and they get picked up randomly by Tony Hinchcliffe, who's the host of the show. And you get to perform 1 minute of stand-up comedy in front of 300 people in a room and then thousands more people who are watching on YouTube. And there's an alley where all of those comedians wait now in Austin, Texas, behind the Comedy Mothership. And so I'm watching your Man on the Street interview that was put up recently on YouTube, and it's like the most strange, beautiful, twisted group of people that I've seen, in just like the personality range of the people that are packed into that alley is absolute madness.
Very, very eclectic group of people. So they actually, the alleyway was so sort of getting chaotic. The party atmosphere was getting a little bit out of hand. So they actually moved the waiting area over to Shakespeare's Bar, which is next to Mothership. Um, but yeah, the alleyway back there, the self-named Kill Alley was it was interesting, man. If you go and watch those interviews, I put some circus music in the background because that's really what it reminds me of. And Tony Hinchcliffe is a friend of mine. I would say I'd be hard pressed to say there's a better roast comedian in the world. He's created a platform that helps a lot of people out, and it gets, you said thousands of views. Kill Tony gets hundreds of thousands of views.
Thousands, yeah.
Weekly, yeah, and monthly. I mean, if you add up all, they do an episode every Monday. Millions total, if you add all the episodes up. So maybe a million, 2 million views a month. And these people in the alleyway are people that they're chasing after their dreams, and they're essentially, without him, wouldn't really have much of an opportunity. And that's what sets Kill Tony apart from a lot of other shows. It's stand-up, it's comedy, it's a podcast, but it's also, and this might not be like the best comparison, but it's like, it's almost like if Joe Rogan is like 60 Minutes style podcasting, then Kill Tony could be considered like Saturday Night Live. I don't know what really exactly to call it. It's like the stand-up version of Saturday Night Live, and it is essentially, it's a live show. They produce the episodes 2 weeks out because if they were to live stream, people could go up there and say something bad and get their channel banned, like that. But yeah, it's fucking crazy, man. That alleyway. I had a good time back there, man. To be honest, some of the craziest shit that was back there was this guy named Mr. THC. He was giving away or selling, or I don't know really what his deal was. I wasn't complicit in any drug sales, even though Instagram thinks I was. Somebody reported me for posting this reel, but this guy was handing out THC suppositories, and you freeze them, and then you put them up your butthole or your vagina, and then you get high for 10 to 15 hours, which obviously sounds like a fucking nightmare. I don't know why you would ever want to do that.
God damn. I bet you it was a competitor to Mr. THC, someone else that was slinging butt suppositories and saw that, and they're like, I didn't know someone else was doing it, and then they just reported your reel to Instagram. But like 10 to 15 hours is insane.
Dude, I originally thought that one of my ex-girlfriends reported my reel, but Yeah, I think that it was just the fact that I was talking about drugs. It could be something as simple as that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to like put myself in a mental state where I'm about to blast off on a weed suppository and stick it up my asshole and just like
And then go up on stage on Kill Tony.
100%, yeah. Like if I was at a party or something and I had them in my pocket, I'm going to the bathroom, I'm just sticking it up my butt, I'm coming back out, and then for 45 minutes I'm just walking around, and then all of a sudden like it just hits you out of nowhere and you're on that ride for probably 3 to 4 times the amount of hours that a normal edible, like a normal edible, I feel
Smoking a
like peaks for a couple hours, and 10 to 15 hours is crazy.
Well, dude, I ate an edible a couple months ago, and I was at my girlfriend's house, and I got so high. It's the first time I've eaten an edible. It was like coconut oil with THC in it. I got so high, I was like uncomfortable just sitting still. You know what I mean? I was like, why am I here? I don't even want to be around her right now. You know what I mean? I just got like uncomfortably high. And that was just from a little bit of THC oil that I put into a coffee. I mean, imagine shoving one of those things up your ass, dude. 15 hours? Why would you ever do that? That's fucking insane. I would never, ever purposefully do that. I didn't try them. They're sitting right here in the studio. In fact, I'll show you. Hold on.
Yeah, let's pop one in real quick. I'll get a bag over here.
It's good branding,
It
though.
is.
Good branding. THC boofables. That's what he calls them, boofables.
It looks fun. It's got like Patrick Star logo esque, for like SpongeBob for the kids. I love it.
Yeah. You want me to read this off to you real quick?
Yeah, give it to me.
Pros of suppositories. Here you go. Localized relief for a variety of vaginal and pelvic issues. No psychoactive element. You won't feel a typical high, meaning the relief can be used anytime. Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
All the all the medical properties of cannabis are absorbed into your bloodstream through the vagina rather than being digested through the gastrointestinal tract. It's coconut oil, cocoa butter, and CBD. So maybe there's not even actually THC in this. Uh, maybe he was just, playing it up a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just imagining if someone had a panic attack on that and went to the hospital, which if I stuck that up my ass, there's a 50% chance that would happen. Like explaining to the nurse that you shoved weed up your ass and her being like, "No, it must have been something else. They don't make those." And you're like, "No, I met this guy in an alley. He was selling these things called boofables." And like by the time you're finished explaining to the nurse, the panic attack goes away, and you're like, "Thanks, I didn't even need a Xanax. I just
Yeah.
needed to explain what was going on."
Yeah, I met this guy named Mr. THC in an alley behind Joe Rogan's club. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sure you did.
yeah. And you're like, "That was
That's
before I started tripping." And she's like, "All right, all right."
yeah.
And I also like when you smoke, I don't know about you, but I usually start to feel the high in my head first, and then it'll kind of distribute into the rest of my body. So I'm wondering if you put it up your butt, like, do you start to feel like the high come from your asshole, and like the last thing to get high is your head, and it's just like going up, like extending out from the center of your body.
I don't know, man. I'm not ever gonna try those things. They're kind of like a joke, just sitting up in my studio now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if have you seen the podcast we've done up here. Have you seen the backdrop of the studio?
I've seen I've seen Faust and Furious. Is that the one you're talking about, or there's some other guest podcast?
I did that with the TV behind me, but we filmed a ton of shit up here. But we like the most recent one that would show the studio the best is my drunk uncle's podcast with
Uncle
Uncle
Laser.
Laser.
Yeah, I've seen that a few times.
Yeah, he's one of my best buddies, and we filmed that up here. Me, him, and Bobby Flacco. We used to film it up here. Now we film it at a different place, and I'm just kind of on and off because I do a lot of like political stuff and journalistic stuff, and I just don't have the time to like fully produce the show. But you can see all the shit that's on the walls up here. I mean, we got fake tits that are on a mannequin. We've got wigs and wrestling boots, G string on the wall. some boofables. I mean, like whenever I get stuff like that when I'm out doing interviews or working on a job or whatever, any kind of weird trophy or gift I get from somebody, we just put it in the studio and just adds to the bizarre feel of this studio,
Hell
dude.
yeah, hell yeah. You could just pick a Halloween costume off the wall and then grab a boofable and you're good to go.
Yeah, dude, you just blast right off, dude. We have I used to have a bunch of fucking outfits up here. Like we had a priest outfit, a nun outfit, we had an astronaut, we had some weird suits. Like I had a suit that had a suit and a tie, and the tie had like the Democratic National Convention on it, and I don't know how you vote, but we'd record videos making fun of Democrats and shit.
I'm too lazy to vote, but I just want.
It's all a scam, anyways, dude.
Yeah, I forget who told this joke, but it was before my time. But it was like the Democrats and the Republicans are just being held by the same corporate puppet, and the corporations just like
Oh,
make them dance. But I mean, if there was someone under the age of 50 that was running for president, I feel like that would just automatically get my vote. Just someone.
what about
Just
Robert?
what's up?
Go ahead. I was gonna say, what about Robert Kennedy? How old is he?
I don't know. He talks like he's 120, but I don't know what his actual age is.
I'm looking right now. He is 69 years old. Okay, I thought he was young.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
He'd get assassinated anyway if he ran, dude.
Oh yeah, like I mean, your chances of being assassinated just as a president in general, I feel like are pretty high cuz if what, 4 or 5 presidents have been assassinated and there's only been 40 something presidents, so like you have a 10% chance of just getting popped off in the middle of a speech. Just baseline.
Yeah, not there's a handful that got attempted assassinations
Yeah.
that didn't even die, so the number's probably even a little bit
You
higher.
you probably
You
got a
know,
25% chance of being shot at, someone just like trying to fucking take you out from a roof, just being the president.
the um the the Democrat Republican dichotomy that we were just talking about, I think, is best summed up by that meme of the warplanes flying over, and one of them says Republican, and it's just like a regular old bomber plane, and then the other one says Democrat, and it's a bomber plane that's got like a pride flag on it and
Yeah.
like a BLM flag. It's complete bullshit. I remember when the BLM riots were happening, I was downtown covering those. We got some hey, shameless plug. Go to my YouTube, Gary Faust. Just type that in. You can find the footage of the riots down
Fuck
there.
yeah. And I'll link, this will be linked
Yeah.
to the podcast also.
Bet, yeah, fuck yeah. But when we were down there and I was watching all this happen, I was like, oh, this is for sure an orchestrated, you know, this is an orchestrated event. Like nobody the politicians don't give a fuck about this, and they're gonna fucking like funnel all this money to the people at the top of these charitable organizations. And then it turns out if you just look up BLM and the scams and the money, it's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened. It's the same shit with all those organizations. I mean, it's like I said, dude, it's all a scam. Republicans and Democrats are all full of shit, dude.
Yeah, and it's like didn't a couple of
Well,
those.
I vote third party, by the way, for the record.
What's up?
I said I vote third party. I'm not a big I definitely dislike the Democratic Party more because they're doing some real weird shit lately with all the transgender kid stuff, but uh I'm not really a fan of the Republicans either because I think a lot of those guys ended up being like weird, like closeted, like Mike Pence. I feel like he's trying to fucking put people in conversion therapy because he's secretly gay or something.
Yeah, yeah. All those
Very-
conversion therapy guys are just projecting. They're like, no, no one ever did this for
you
me,
need
so I'm gonna try to rid the devil from the next generation.
I wish somebody would have locked me in a jail cell
Yeah,
and told me I wasn't gay for years.
yeah. I'm doing
Yeah,
this for your own good. I swear.
yeah. No, I mean, dude, yeah. Anyways, not to go off the rails, but yeah, all that shit is. I mean, I think it's all fucking garbage, dude. I care about freedom of speech and I care about gun rights. That's my whole thing. I'm very you should be able to say pretty much whatever you want, even if it's disgusting or crazy or whatever. And I also think that firearms are really important for um, a society to be able to defend itself from a tyrannical government.
Yeah, and
Those are my
to to
my two
to
things.
to go back to Kill Tony, I mean, to have a comedy show in Texas, bringing both of those together, guns and comedy. There's like the way that Kill Tony is run. I love how there's so many different people that get up on stage and tell jokes and do comedy, and literally the only thing that matters is, are you funny? And
Yeah,
people definitely give off vibes where you get on stage, the crowd hates you at the beginning before you even open your mouth. The crowd loves you, but then if you can make the crowd laugh, they're always on your side, and it doesn't matter what the fuck you just said or what you look like, how you vote, like who gives a shit. So I love how comedy, especially in Austin, Texas, has become this equalizer of, if you're entertaining and you're funny, you will get on stage somehow, and people will listen to what you have to say. Just fucking, make it hilarious.
yeah, and that's the beauty of Kill Tony. Anybody can sign up, literally anyone. I mean, there's been people threatened to kill Hinchcliffe before, literally.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some wild shit, man. I
On
mean,
camera, or is this like later on a DM or something?
uh, guy a long, long, long time ago that like he attacked like the fucking trumpet player or the sax player, I think, Jeremiah Watkins,
Oh, jeez.
was attacked on stage. But I think the guy was just on mushrooms or something. And then there's been some other just wild shit that's happened. But no, that show's definitely all about free speech, man. I mean, it's Hinchcliffe, dude. He'll say whatever the fuck he wants. I respect that. You know what I mean? He got not really canceled, but briefly in trouble for that, which was totally bullshit, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanna get into that, but first I wanted to go back to the man on the street interviews a bit, because you've mentioned, you've talked to homeless people, BLM, politicians, like across the board, and I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about, what do you think makes for a good man on the street host? Because those interviews could go 1,000 different directions. Shit gets out of control. Like, for you, what makes a good host for someone that's going to host those man on the street style interviews?
It's a good question, man. You gotta have good reactions. You've got to be comfortable talking to people. You got to be loose. I usually drink a little bit before I do
Oh
those.
yeah.
Uh, you got to be good. I think arguably the most important thing is you got to be good at selecting who you talk to, because there's what you don't see with those videos is there are handfuls each time. Sometimes there's a lot that we don't use, but there's a lot of people that we don't end up using because they're boring. Um, I'm just good at, not to toot my own horn too much, but I'm just really good at doing those. I don't even really know why. I think it's because I'm probably just a little bit nuts myself, so I'm like able to really easily figure out who I can talk to and get a crazy answer out of. And sometimes I want to get in more informative stuff. Like there was one of the guys in that Kill Alley one. There was a guy who was talking about the Austin comedy scene, and I cut the music in the background because I put the dramatic music for the parts where people are being
Yeah.
dramatic, or the clown music for all the crazy shit. But there was a part where this one dude, I don't even remember what his name was, black dude. He had his headphones on. He was rolling a blunt, but he was talking about how it really is beautiful that Austin's turned into this mecca for comedy in the world, in the world really. And when I saw the minute he started talking, and I realized that he was going to have a serious um, response, then I pivot how I react to that. So you got to know, you got to kind of know. It's like same as podcasting. You got to know the flow. You got to know when to ebb and flow, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I noticed that usually you'll just either let people talk themselves up or talk themselves into a hole. And I feel like that's important for a man
yeah,
on the street, like to not really. I don't know if you do it.
for
I'm sure you do it purposely, but like to not insert your own opinion lets that other person feel more free to just let it fly. Like, I'm gonna let my fucking soul rip on this mic, and you're just like, all right, dude. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Well, that's funny that you say that because a buddy of mine, Zach Tellender, he him and I are actually going to go out tomorrow and talk to people about Olympic weightlifting and stuff like that. He's fucking awesome, dude. And he was telling me the other day, that's what he told me. He said part of the reason that when I do those that they're so funny is because I'm not forcing it. I just ask a question, have maybe a little bit of a reaction, and then I let them do the talking, which is another, I would say pretty important part of it. But really, dude, at the end of the day, those street interviews are kind of fucking stupid. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're funny and they're actually I have a good time doing them. Every time we go out and do them at the end of it, I'm fucking burnt out because you gotta like. Sometimes there's people who I'm like, dude, if I say the wrong thing to this guy, he's gonna swing at me or something. But but they're fun, but they're dumb. I like doing more serious like news based stuff. Like back years ago when I was in college, I did an interview with John McAfee. That
Yeah.
was it's still up actually. The first interview I ever did with McAfee, the first podcast I did with McAfee is still up. YouTube took down my second one because he compared the coronavirus to pathogenic diarrhea, and they said misinformation, so they took that down. And then the third interview I did with McAfee, I actually lost the SD card at a strip club because it's a long story, dude, but basically these strippers were like, "You owe us money," and I was like, "Fuck you, no, I don't." So I jumped down this fucking big retaining wall and ran away.
Yeah.
And in the process of that, I lost not only the SD card with the footage on it, but I also lost I had a paycheck in my pocket. It fell out of my pocket.
Oh,
So
damn.
I guess they could have tracked me down and found me, but yeah, so I've only got one one McAfee interview remaining. But the reason I brought that up is because that's the kind of stuff that I like to do. I like to do the more serious stuff, but my personality tends to lend itself to just acting crazy and fucking around a lot, which is what we do on the Drunk Uncle podcast with Laser and Bobby Flacco. Um, it's all bullshitting. People think we're serious sometimes, though. They think that we're actually like that 24/7. I think it's just an energy that happens when us three get together. We're just out of fucking control.
Yeah, no, you're really good at weaving in and out of the serious and the funny and just like letting it ride
You
on the
think so,
podcast. Oh yeah, 100%.
dude? I struggle with that shit, man. Sometimes I'm like, dude, I have a son, and sometimes I think he's gonna see this and he's gonna think his dad's a fucking nut job, dude. You know what I mean? I struggle with it in my mind sometimes. I'm being dead serious. I don't know if I want my kid to look at me that way, but people have told me what you just said, that they say that they're like, yeah, you can kind of tell when you're being serious and when you're fucking around. So hopefully my son will be able to tell that one day too.
Yeah, I mean,
You know what I mean?
here's the thing, like, so you for comedy podcasts, like if you label a podcast as comedy, people know that your guiding light is to be funny. Everything that you're trying to say is to come back and bring it to a hilarious thing, like Tim Dillon show, Tiger Belly, insert comedy podcast here, Kill Tony. But I love podcasts where it's a little bit of a mix of both. I love stand-up comedy podcasts, but I also love when people are fucking around and they're making jokes about boofables, and then 2 minutes later they're like talking about the time they interviewed John McAfee, like a billionaire playboy on the run, and like how awesome of an experience that is. And it's I feel like the audience is good at deciphering what is a joke and what is not for the most part.
Dude.
But there are people out there that want a label, and they're like, what are you? Are you a comedian? Are you serious? Like, if you're serious, you can't joke around. And if you're a comedian, you can't talk about serious shit. But to me, the best shows are the combination of both. You have a funny moment, and then you go back into it, and then maybe some days the entire thing is like you're just you interview a politician one time, and then a week later you stick an edible up your ass and you're talking to a friend, and the entire 90 minutes is just a joke. So I love that combination.
Dude, it's very Hunter S. Thompson Gonzo style shit. I do things pretty. Dude, I used to have this thing we did called Faust News, and we called it neutral, digestible news, which was a fucking joke because it's very subjective.
Yeah.
I'm very opinionated, and it was hard for people to watch. Like, not the people that watch my shit loved it, but the people that didn't know me would be like, "What the fuck's wrong with this guy?" So it was like a satirical news thing, which is a lot of what I do. Is like, I'm making fun of like the Daily Show or Colbert or whatever. You know what I mean? And but I always the thing I always got a lot was people kept telling me over and over. They would be like, "Dude, you're like Alex Jones combined with Hunter S. Thompson." I was like, "Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it." But dude, I honestly, a lot of people think I'm serious with some of this stuff. I mean, I don't know, man. I think there's definitely times when people struggle to know to read the room. They don't know when it's serious and when it's a joke. But when it's a comedy podcast, it's I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like the Drunk Uncle podcast is literally called My Drunk Uncle's Podcast. It's a fucking,
Yeah.
it's we drink a bunch of beer and just talk shit. It's not supposed to be taken seriously in any capacity, really,
Yeah.
you know.
So you obviously know your own audience better than me, but I would say that 90 to 95% of people are picking up, this is a bit or this is an exaggerated version of himself right now on the podcast. And then there are other times where it's more of a serious vibe. But then there's the 5% of people that will comment, like you can't joke about this, you can't, this
Yeah.
is something that's off limits. But I think, almost everyone who's watching something, you read the body language, you kind of see the expression in someone's face when there's almost like a disconnect. I've noticed in a lot of comedians that, especially Tim Dillon, I love his solo style show. And when he's saying something that he knows is ridiculous, and you're watching the YouTube, you can see on his face he's like kind of on the verge
Right.
of breaking, and like his eyes get bigger, like he's almost smiling a little bit while he's saying it. You get like these long extended stares into the camera, and there's this clear body language that this is a bit. But then when you're just listening to something, sometimes it's a little harder to tell, but I still think you could tell. But for the most part, I think most people are able to pick up on it, and the rest are just bullshit, don't even believe what they're commenting, or just like trying to stir something up.
Well, you also mentioned that people like to label stuff, which is another good point because I myself do that a lot. It's just a way for me to organizationally understand what I'm doing. So when I like the way I organize my YouTube channel, for example, I've got man on the street, I've got it's like man on the street, news, interviews, media stuff, like I podcasts. Like I like to have it labeled and structured so that I know where to go, put what where. It's just helps with the workflow, streamlines it. And I think human beings in general tend to do that. But sometimes there's sort of hybrid stuff, and people, uh, again, people that watch the kind of content that we're consuming, for sure, they know that people aren't always serious. Like Tim Dillon is a good example. He had like a clip I saw recently where he's like, Austin, Texas is a shithole, and blah blah blah. And Tim Dillon's fucking hilarious. And if he wasn't funny, then maybe it wouldn't uh, translate. Maybe people would think he was serious. You know what I mean? And sometimes if I'm doing something and it doesn't turn out to be that funny, maybe it would seem like I am serious. But if you don't know somebody and you don't know what their MO is, then yeah, it could be easy to to look at it and be like, who the fuck's this dude Gary and why is he such a fucking asshole?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I've definitely gotten a lot of people. I've gotten a lot of people that have. When I did the homeless interviews, those are the first things I ever did. So let me tell you how I got into this street interview shit. So like 4 years ago, in how long ago? It was like 4 or 5 years ago. Austin passed a camping ordinance. They changed it so that homeless people were essentially allowed to camp wherever they wanted, which is, obviously a completely insane and irresponsible thing to do. Anybody who thinks that that's good is mentally retarded. And you basically in the city, there was like a big jump in crime, and people were really worried about it. I had I had been working on like a little mini doc for a journalism class because at the time I was at UT Austin studying journalism, which you know, hats off to the J school there.
Yeah.
Being a little bit sarcastic there. The journalism school is fucking dead. It's all brainwashing. But I did have some cool teachers, so I don't want to fucking loop everybody into that. Anyways, I had been working on a mini doc on this guy named Michael Cargill, who was suing the fucking ATF and the DOJ for bump stocks. He was a big gun guy. He's a gay, black, Republican, conservative gun store owner. He's a firebrand. He's nuts. He's awesome. I produce his show now. So I was working on a mini doc for him, and he had a radio show at the time that we've now transitioned into like a podcast. And they were talking about all the homeless stuff, and I had been on the show once with my buddy Eli, who was a comedian, and we were just kind of bullshitting about stuff. It was the first time I was ever like appeared on a media outlet. It was crazy. I was like, oh, this is the big time, and it was fucking AM terrestrial radio. And long story long, we were talking about the homeless stuff, and I was in the J school, and I decided to pick the homeless camping ordinance as my topic for a story. And it was for a local issues story. And while I was covering that, I was at the gas station on campus filling up gas. Girl, I went to college. I was in college super fucking long. It took me 46 years to fucking graduate, dude. I was like Tommy Boy.
I did a couple victory laps too, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I took forever because I kept switching schools and fucking up my life and all that sort of stuff. But so I'm sitting there. I'm like 25, 26 years old. So I'm older. I feel a little bit more like I'm a little bit more responsible for for my actions and stuff. I'm not like a 19-year-old, kid. Anyways, this girl that was about 19 pulled up behind me to get gas, and she's pumping her gas, and this homeless guy comes out of nowhere. He's on the other side of the pump, so she can't really see him, and he takes the handle of the gas nozzle out and just starts slamming it over and over into the gas pump.
Jesus.
And screaming, and she's like, what? Like, she didn't know what was going on, and I'm looking at this thinking, oh, this is not going to go well. So I pinched my gas off and put the thing back up, and the dude circled around the other side of the pump and started screaming at this girl. And she was like, she just was looking at me like kind of mouthing, help me. And so I yelled at the guy. I was like, hey, dude, leave her alone, whatever. Dude turns around. I mean, this guy would have fucking killed me, dude. I was not going to beat this guy in a fight. He was like 6'3".
He sounds like he was on at least 2 boofables.
Dude, he was on fucking probably PCP boofables, dude. So he pulled out a big ass knife and he threatened to kill me. And I was just like, I've just basically distracted this guy long enough until she could get out of there, and I hopped in my truck and I got the fuck out of there too because I didn't even own a gun at the time. And anyways, my point was that what was my point?
You
was I just telling
you
a cool
were
story?
you were describing how you got into the man on the street homeless style interviews.
So I told Cargill on the show, come and talk it. I told him, hey, I got something crazy just happened. Let me come on the show and tell the story. And he was like, okay, cool. So I went on there. I told the story. I called out the mayor, who was Steve Adler. He was pushing all this bullshit at the time, which I ended up interviewing him later about it and kind of caught him in like a little bit of a lie. And so I told that story, and then after I told the story, I thought, you know what? I don't really know why any of these people are even homeless. I don't even know what any of these people's stories are. So I'm just going to get a microphone and go wander around and start interviewing homeless people. And a buddy of mine who used to work in the IT department at InfoWars stole one of Alex Jones' cameras, and we just ran down there and started interviewing people.
Fuck yeah. That's that's the the most organic way to start interviewing people that are out of their minds and homeless, which a lot of them seem to be. Like, I've listened to people on podcasts that they spend a lot of their day interviewing homeless people or working with homeless people, and they're like, almost every single one has a mental illness. They're almost all addicted to drugs, and people think that just putting them in some sort of free housing is going to solve those problems, and then it just turns into drug dens. But that's like, to have a homeless guy borderline attack you, and then to go out and interview homeless people, that that's an interesting, just face it head on response. Like that's if I like if some guy just fucking drop kicked me in the head on the street, and then a week later I was interviewing UFC guys. Like I just like walked into a UFC gym and was like, I want to, find out about this guy. Like, let me just, go call around and see if I can track him down at whatever gym, because that was good technique. Like, I could tell he was doing some training. So let me go figure out where this guy's from. I definitely would not have had the balls to have that response. I would have been like, I'm fucking, never going to that gas station again. I'm never giving a guy $2 for playing the snare drum again in my life. That's the last homeless interaction I
Well,
have.
the I actually kind of like the street musicians, the buskers. I think that's what they call them now. I've always just called them street musicians, but those guys are actually usually pretty cool, and a lot of them are really talented. Like one of the fucking best guitarists I've ever met in my life is my friend Bobby met this guy after this he met this guy after he had gotten off of a train. He was like literally train hopping, and he met him. His name's oh my god, the guy's got like three different names. It's either Marcus King or Rusty Slade or something like that. But I mean, this dude is like basically like a homeless fucking train hopping guy, and he's like the goddamn best guitarist ever, and he's like the nicest fucking guy ever. But that being said, that I want to make sure the reason I bring this up is I want to make sure it's understood there's a difference between the street musicians and the actual homeless people, because the the street musicians are pretty talented, and a lot of them are super nice people, but the homeless people are out of their fucking minds, dude. They're Some of them are nice, but yeah, like you said, mental illness out the ass, um, a lot of drugs, a lot of people that can't handle their drugs, to be quite honest. Um, there needs to be some sort of they need to reopen some of those mental hospitals. Uh, I mean, I hate saying that, but the reality is that you can't just let people wander around the streets when they're a menace to society or a liability to other people. And it's not because they're like unhoused or something like that. That's the argument that a lot of people that are super super liberal or progressive want to say. Oh, it's against their human rights to commit them into an asylum or a mental
Mm.
hospital, or oh, just because they don't have somewhere to live doesn't mean they're a bad person. Yeah, it kind of does. If you're out of your mind and you have nowhere to live and you're just wandering around the street naked, shitting on the ground and attacking people,
Yeah.
then yeah, you are a bad person. So you should be locked up. Like, what kind of fucking dumbass
Yeah,
logic is
it's
that?
not safe for the person that's walking around, and it's not safe for the other people that are coming into contact with
Not
them.
at all. Yeah, let's just take fucking 10 steps, 10 it just doesn't make any sense. Let's take 10 steps backwards and become uncivilized. I just don't understand what the end game there is. Like, you really just want to have a complete free for all. I mean, every time I meet somebody that is like, "Hey, let's have anarchy." They're always like some frail, skinny like punk who wouldn't last a minute in a society like that anyways.
Yeah.
Cuz they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, dude. I remember when I was 12 years old and I listened to fucking Blink 182. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Come on.
and also, what would be, if the solution is not just letting homeless people camp wherever they want, which obviously is a shit show, and you interviewed homeless people who said that the ordinance is terrible because it's making everyone else who has a home hate us even more. So like it's
Yeah.
just like it's encouraging more violence amongst homeless people. It's making it
And a
harder.
lot of pollution too. A
Yeah.
lot of pollution.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gangs, a lot of drug deals. There's a lot of rapes. It's just totally fucking out of control. If you really want to get a deep dive into what's going on with all the homelessness, check out Dash, documenting Austin streets and homeless.
Dash.
My friend Jamie Hammonds just did a piece in like I think the New York Post or something. But he's all about it. He wants me to go down there with him and put on a fucking one of those like Kevlar vests and go with him because they got threatened with knives and stuff like that. And I'll probably go do it soon. But that shit does get kind of scary, dude. But yeah, what's the solution?
So I mean,
I,
the only thing I could think of in my dumbass inexperienced brain when it comes to homelessness is if you have people that are addicted to drugs, mentally ill, and have no homes, you need to build state of the art centers in one major city to start out as an experiment. Like some billionaire just make like a massive,
a homeless
yeah, like
city.
almost like a homeless dome thing that is a rehab that like you gotta get them off drugs, psychotherapy, and then has some sort of like patient outbound into a job and housing. But like you can't just give a homeless person a job and an apartment and be
Yeah.
like, you're cured now. You got to do months of intensive rehab, months of intensive psychotherapy to even readjust, and then like maybe after a year and a half, which would probably cost anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 a month per person in that rehab center, which is why you need a private billionaire donor to make it. Like I don't see any other way besides having something like that.
Well, those you're talking about like wraparound services and whatnot. Yeah, dude. Good luck, man.
And for
The
free
most real
too, like because obviously they can't pay for it, so like it
the most
has to be free.
yeah. Well, that's not gonna work though because you're just gonna be blowing all your money and there's no guarantee it'll work. The most realistic solution I've ever seen was there was a place and get this, dude. This is the irony of ironies here. So there was a place called Camp Rat, RATT. It stood for fucking I don't even remember what it stood for, but it was an acronym R.A.T.T. And it was off 183 here in Austin, and it was an area that I believe Abbott at one point, Greg Abbott designated as an area for homeless people, and it was like an old fucking like a big lot where there were parking spaces where people could set up their tents. It was basically a designated homeless camp, and there were the people that got there first. There were like old horse stalls and like storage units where people could open up and build their stuff. Um, dude, I have footage of this somewhere. I don't even know where it is. I honestly should fucking get that and release it. It just never got released because I had a bunch of stuff going on. But it was actually worked pretty well. They kind of policed themselves. It was safer for women than any of the other communities I had ever been to. I went over there a number of times and talked to people. They had their own security, sort of. They had a mechanic. They had people that would cook. I mean, dude, it was pretty legit. It was like watching a society kind of develop itself. And then what happened was I don't know if it was the state of Texas or if it was Travis County or what it was, but they gave that control of that area to a homeless charity and they fucked it all up. It was exactly what we were talking about with BLM. They ended up getting the homeless people pitched in all their money to buy the space, to rent the space, and it was something like $150 a month or something. It
Yeah.
was some crazy like low, and of course it ended up getting sold for next to nothing to this organization, a 501c3, whatever bullshit. And they lost that area, and I don't know what happened since then. I mean, maybe I should go check it out. But um, that's America, dude. That's how the political system works. So what you just said with a billionaire donor basically had already, on a very very micro scale, had been attempted with no money, and it kind of worked. I watched it unfold, and then they took it away from them. It was sad,
Yeah.
actually.
I love how homeless charities to actual homeless solutions are like big pharma to cheap drugs that actually work. Like as soon as one comes along, they're like, "Well, if this spreads, like we're not gonna be getting paid
Yeah, we need
400K
money.
a year to make a ten
Yep.
thousand dollar difference. Like we need to throw a wrench in this and turn this into homeless Hunger Games so we could raise our salaries next year.
Dude, I for sure agree with that. I think that the homeless problem is perpetuated. I think that the Austin City Council I think they created a cyclical problem on purpose that only they have the solution to. I think Steve Adler is the old mayor was a real estate attorney, and I think that he probably benefited from it, profited from it. For example, the Arch here in Austin was a state of the art homeless facility that only houses not nearly even remotely enough people, and it's underutilized. None of the homeless people even like it. The same people that were homeless underneath the Arch sign 5 years ago are still there today,
With
and
their kids.
yeah, there's some big real estate developer got to get the contract from the government because he was buddies with Adler. And then, boom, he made a shitload of money. And they'll make another one. And guess what? They put the Arch right next to 6th Street in Austin. 6th Street, the biggest alcohol attraction in the entire city of Austin, arguably the biggest alcohol attraction in the state of Texas. They put the fucking homeless shelter right next to it. Homeless people who have serious problems with alcohol. Put that next to the biggest alcohol attraction in the city. These people are either grossly incompetent or they're malevolent and they're trying to make money off the backs of people that are already broken. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's like putting a Hard Rock next to a gambling addict's apartment complex. It's like just fucking pouring gasoline on the fire. Have you ever had conversations with foreigners about how America handles homeless people? Like I've had some interesting conversations when I've had some interesting conversations when I've been abroad the last year and a half to 2 years, where there are countries where the homeless problem is not nearly as prevalent as the United States, given that a lot of these countries are smaller, so it's easier to deal with. But I'll talk to someone just like in the conversation, homelessness comes up, and because that's what America is known for. It's like guns, homeless people, and rock stars getting fucked up when you go abroad. And those people are like, I'll tell you another funny interaction I had in Colombia. But the first about the homeless stuff, like the foreigners are like, yeah, we have programs here where they do get them psychotherapy, they get them into rehabs, and then there's a transition system, and it works really well. And the the rate of relapse into homelessness is super low, and it works. Like, what do you? And then they turn to me, what do you guys do in America? And I'm just like, well, so our politicians play hot potato with homeless people, and basically when there's too many in one city, they just put them all on a bus, and then they just like ship them off to the other city, and then like that city will be like, well, fuck, like we got to get back at this governor, and then just send him across the country, and we just, like a complete shit show. And just the look on some of these people's faces that I've spoken to, they're just like, what is wrong with you? Like, how is that a country?
Well, I think that the issue with America is just it's cultural decadence, man. We can't fix homelessness because the mindset of Americans in general, people that aren't homeless, people that are rich, people that are poor, people that are homeless, whatever. We're all out of our fucking minds, dude. This is a dog eat dog country, man. Like, we're not gonna do that shit that they do in fucking, you know, France. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what a good example is, but it's not
Yeah,
gonna work here, dude. Gun control doesn't work here. Fucking the homeless, all the policies that work in Europe aren't gonna work here. We're a different
yeah,
fucking breed here, dude. There's a reason why we fucking run shit. You know what I mean? Which is slowly but surely falling apart. We're going in a really bad direction. Um, and there is a point in time when that dog eat dog cutthroat mentality we're starting to eat our own. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I'm for it. I just mean uh, like when you talk to foreigners about stuff, like when I talk to foreigners about gun control, I've had a ton of, especially like Canadians, Australians. They're like, oh, so really, like I didn't know about this law or that law or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's not gonna work in other places because the culture is different. Like Canadians are super fucking passive, nice. They're respectful. I mean, you're not gonna like get into an argument and get into a street fight with a Canadian. You know what I mean? In Austin, in for example, or really a lot of cities in America, like you go out and have a couple too many drinks and say one thing wrong to somebody, and you're throwing hands, dude. It's just a whole different vibe in this country, dude. We're super diverse. We're very violent. We're just different than a lot of other first world countries.
Yeah, and we're basically 15 different countries mashed together that are holding on to a thread. We
Yes.
spoke offline. I just came back from Japan a few weeks ago, and no matter where you go in Japan, when you meet people, it feels like you're meeting a population with a through line character characteristics or character traits. That
They
there's
they
like a
have a
vibe to Japan.
they have a culture. They have
Yeah.
a culture.
Yeah, and then you go to like Montana, and then you travel to Miami, Florida, and you're like, there's no way these are two places in the same country, and you're like, no, they are. We're
Right.
just fucking like, it's wild, and it just changes the way that we can regulate certain things because it is really like having it's not a melting pot, it's just like a puzzle, and a lot of the pieces don't mesh together. Like a lot of pieces are like, we just want to fucking, like, you can't regulate Texas the same way you regulate New York, you can't regulate New York like you regulate Nevada, but like we have all these federal laws that try to bring us together, where I feel like uh we just need something that's more flexible, that just isn't there, that allows the American culture to come through, but it doesn't like try to dictate everyone has to fucking do this and everyone has to do that.
I think that we need to probably section the country into different
Vibe
little
zones.
pieces.
Which vibe?
Yeah. Like we got the, West Coast, Northwest, Southwest, the South, Southeast. Places like for example, somewhere like California should just be its own thing completely. It shouldn't be connected to anything else. New York's probably another place like that. Florida, Texas, Alaska, like the country needs to be like, the federal government really needs to be broken down because it's causing there's no cohesiveness anymore. People aren't not even remotely the same values, and there is no, like you said, a through line. There's no culture. There's no consistent American culture anymore. It does not exist anymore. It's not there. I don't know who the fuck thinks it is there, but it's not. Even within our own states, people are struggling to you know to get along. I mean, NorCal versus SoCal, for example. Like, think about how vastly, incredibly different that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For people that don't know, I mean, Southern California is like like, you got a lot of fake tits, you got a lot of blonde hair, you know, bikini clad women. I mean, it kind of is like in the movies. It's like, like a lot of surfers and shit like that, nice nightlife. And then NorCal is like, I mean, no joke, dude. It reminded me of when I lived in Kentucky. It's like hillbillies with shotguns growing weed
Yeah.
and AK-47. It's completely different. And there's hippies too, but the hippies and the hillbillies kind of get along because they're like, yeah, we like guns and weed. It's a weird thing, but it's just so much different. Like El Dorado County, I used to live up there, is completely different than where I went to college, which was in Santa Barbara County. How is it the same state? Let alone California being in the same country as Florida. It just doesn't even make sense. It's not cohesive, and it's just not. It's not. There's no intelligent design there. You know.
Yeah, I wonder what it is, because you have that in a lot of states where you have the population center in the city, and then once you start to disperse out, like New York is similar in that, where you go
Yeah.
down, you're in New York City, which is pretty much like right at the tip of southern New York, and then you go 45 minutes north of the city, and you'd think you're in a completely different state. Like it doesn't, it's night and day, the personalities you meet, the scenery, background, politics, New York City compared to 1 hour away from
Like
Manhattan.
like New York, like Rochester or
Yeah,
Syracuse or
and
something.
not even like upstate. Like I consider Westchester upstate New York because I'm from Long Island. So like anything above Manhattan to me is just upstate. But even like Westchester area, you get north of that, and I don't know if there's something that goes on where your politics just change when you're in a massive group of people that are living on top of each other in buildings, and you're just like 8 million people are just stuffed into a population center, because those are the centers that tend to be more liberal, and then when you're more spread out, those tend to be more conservative. So I don't know if it's like people say that cities are more liberal and then the countryside is more right leaning, but like maybe it happens because of the way that the population is spread out, that your psyche or your personality, your preferences just change based on the the density of the place that you're living, because you just have different problems, you have different things that you give a shit about. The things that, someone living on the ninth floor of an apartment in Lower East Side, yeah, has completely different concerns than someone who's living on a farm in like an hour outside of Albany. Like and it's the same state, but it's just different problems.
So it for sure has to do with population density, and I think the number one issue there is that it's opportunity. If you're out in the middle of the country and you have a bunch of land and you have the viable resources, there's more resources, there's more land, there's more opportunity to make money, you have more space to yourself. You it, it, it's You're not going to be as concerned about, hey, I need this or that, because you can go get it yourself. You can be self sufficient. If you're in a city on the ninth floor of an apartment building and there's no job, there's no, you know what I mean? There's no jobs available. You've got a fucking 10 by 10 square foot studio for fucking $3,000 a month. It's just it's all about opportunity and resources. And that's why the people that run the world know this, and they know that land and resources are basically the keys to the kingdom, and that's why they wars are fought over resources, and sometimes drugs too, which is arguably a resource. But yeah, I think you're totally right, dude. Population density dictates a lot of your opportunities and what resources are available and how thinly or thickly those are divvied out to people, and that determines what
Yeah.
people vote for. Because if you got no resources, you got no other fucking options, you're gonna vote for somebody to give you some free shit. And I don't blame people that do that, because what the fuck else are you gonna do, man? Like, if you're born with no real power or control, then you're gonna ask. You're not gonna bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
You don't want to die. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, the resources make sense. Like being in a city with millions and millions of people, like you said, there's no job available. There's, you're fucking like, you're on the subway sitting in piss, and you're just like, someone has to come in and give me something. Whereas you're more self
Dude,
sufficient if you're living outside the city.
what are your thoughts on this Daniel Penny thing? Can we get political about this real quick? I don't really know the full thing, but
What's
the
going on with
amount of
Daniel Penny? I haven't heard
the
about
guy
it.
he choked this guy out on the subway.
Oh, is he the MMA fighter? The he like put him. I read about an MMA fighter putting a guy in a chokehold and holding him there, and then he ended up dying.
Hold on, I'm looking this up. I'm gonna give you I don't want to spread anything that's not true. So he was indicted yesterday by a New York grand jury in the Jordan Neely subway
Jordan
death.
Neely, okay, yeah.
Uh, yeah. So
And what was he, an
New York.
MMA guy, or did he just put him in a chokehold?
Oh, he was a Marine
Marine, yeah,
veteran.
that's right, that's right, Marine.
Second degree manslaughter charge on the May 1 chokehold death with homeless Jordan Neely. Um, it's been a lightning rod on issues of mental health, crime, and race. I don't know if race had anything to do with it, but it definitely has to do with mental health and the homelessness, which we were just talking about. That's why I wanted to bring this up, because you mentioned the subway thing. I was looking into this. This guy, this homeless guy, Jordan Neely, was, and I'm not saying Daniel Penny's like a hero or anything, but this dude Jordan Neely was freaking out on the subway, and he had been arrested like 20 plus times prior for a variety of different crimes, like including an assault. What's your, given that you just mentioned the sitting in piss on the subway, like, what do you think about shit like this? Like, this is like vigilante justice, arguably.
So was Jordan Neely, because I didn't see the video, was he physically attacking people, or was he one of those homeless dudes that was just kind of yelling into the ether, but he wasn't putting his hands on anyone? And also, how long did he have him in the chokehold? Does it say?
Until he died.
So at least a few minutes, most likely. Does it
Um,
say what he was doing
yeah.
before? What Jordan Neely was
Well,
doing?
he was I think he was just sitting there. I think that the dude Jordan Neely was threatening somebody, and here it says he told passengers he was hungry, he was thirsty, he didn't care about anything, he didn't care about going to jail, he didn't care that he gets a big life sentence. I mean, dude, so the reason I brought this up is because I was pretty much in like not in a confined space, but like this is pretty similar to what happened to me when I was at that gas station, except I got threatened with a knife, so that's way worse. This guy didn't threaten anybody, but I don't know. It's just interesting to me.
So it sounds like he was yelling, making a scene, but he wasn't physically attacking someone. At least not.
Oh no,
Okay.
I don't think he's attacking anybody. But like, where do you draw that line? You know what I mean? You just wait until
So
somebody just fucking knocks you in the face.
so I grew up in Long Island, and which is Plainview, Long Island. It's about 45 minutes outside the city. So I've been taking the Long Island Railroad and the subway since I was like 12, 13 years old. And I would say that it's a pretty New York thing to have people screaming on the subway. If someone's in your face, that's different. Like if someone's saying, I don't care if I get a life sentence, and they're screaming in your face and harassing you, even if they're not touching you, I could see myself like pushing someone back and like just like creating space for myself. And then if they kept coming into my space, like then I would change cars if I could, but if not, the doors are closed, then something physical could happen, and who knows from there. But if it didn't get physical, I just and I don't know how long this Marine has spent in New York, but there's almost like this internal mechanism in your head as a New Yorker where someone starts screaming on the subway, and you just you have your AirPods in, and you have a podcast on, you have music on, and you just fucking like it's just white noise to you because it happens so much that if someone's not in my personal space and some dude's like yelling about like how Jesus is going to save everyone except, the ones who burn in hell, and like everyone on this train is like we're going to fucking hell, and like crazy shit, like people chugging vodka bottles and like waving it around, doing strip dances on the poles that you're supposed to be hanging onto on the subway. Like there's a lot of non-aggressive craziness. There's
Chaos.
a lot of
Yeah.
non-aggressive verbal chaos on the subway, and as a New Yorker who's used to that, I wouldn't physically engage someone unless they were in my personal space and making threats. And it sounds like this guy, I don't know if I watched the video, I'd have a better understanding. But like, if this guy was making gestures at the Marine and maybe like right in front of his face, and like also being a Marine, he probably did not take too kindly to that. Then I could see, I would be okay with the Marine, being like, yo, like back up, like you even like move him with your hands. Um, but if the Marine went directly to the chokehold, I would say you got to take steps before that to de-escalate, unless he was physically, unless the homeless guy was physically engaging you.
So that's interesting because you're from New York, so you understand the culture there. I've never lived in New York. My dad's parents are from upstate, and my dad's family's all from up there. But upstate New York's obviously a lot different than New York City. But I mean, here in Texas, we got stand your ground laws and shit like that. And if somebody gets in your shit, or if they reach their hand into your car, you fucking put a bullet through their head, dude. End of story. We don't deal with shit like that out here. And I wouldn't want to live somewhere where people just accept the fact that people can just scream in your fucking face. Like to me, that's so fucking crazy. Like, why would I ever accept or deal with some fucking bullshit like that? The reason I brought this up though was because like we were talking about like what happened when that dude was like threatening me with a knife, but that guy actually was threatening. He said, "I'm gonna kill you, cracker." So like that's different. But
That
this
which
dude,
guy
this
was
is
saying I'm gonna kill you? The guy at the gas station.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That what happened to me. That dude made it racial and everything, dude. That was a whole that
Yeah.
whole situation was insane, dude. I mean, everybody that was in that parking lot was like, kind of like, all right, good, dude. Thanks for fucking saving that little girl's life. Um, but what I was gonna say was, this dude, the dude that was killed on the subway, he was arrested 42 times
Oh wow.
for drug use and face beating and all sorts of stuff, and he's been reported for like being mentally ill on 43 different calls. So it ties back to the homeless thing we were talking about. That's why kind of popped into my head. It was related to a couple of different things we were talking about, like mental illness and all that stuff. I just think it's really interesting because I saw in the news he wasn't that dude Daniel Penny was indicted yesterday. I didn't know if you knew about it. I kind of
I knew about the story when it
asked
first
your
came
opinion.
out, but I didn't know that he just got indicted. But I will say that it's I don't think it's okay. The laws in New York are definitely fucked up. Like even if someone breaks into your apartment and as the apartment owner, you don't take every chance to try to leave or de-escalate. Like you have to explain
That's
you have to explain yourself why you killed someone who broke into your apartment. And the laws in Texas are obviously different, and I would be I would be more for something like that. But in the subway, I will say if someone is in my face, and the subway's getting more and more ratchet every day, it was dangerous during the pandemic to be on the subway a lot of times during the day, which is, during the day it's usually all right. And it's gone down a little bit since, but it's definitely ratcheted up the ratchetness. So if someone's in my face, I'll get up and I'll create space just by moving, and then I'll change cars or I'll just get out of the subway completely. If
so.
someone is pushing me, which happened like once, but it was more like incidental. Like this guy was just so fucked up, and he was like waving around like this, and he like went backwards with his hand and slapped me in the chest, like not even looking at me, and I just like moved him forward, got out of the car as soon as it opened up, and changed cars and just went on the
Well,
way there.
yeah. I mean, if somebody's just all, hey,
Yeah,
I've drank too much plenty of times and acted like a fool. That's not a reason to get in a fight or
yeah,
fucking hurt somebody or anything like that. I definitely have grace with people regarding stuff like that. But I'm talking about like the issue here is that this guy shouldn't even have been on the subway in the
no,
first
no,
place.
yeah,
If you were arrested 42 times for violent crimes, you should be in prison or in an insane asylum. That was kind of what I was getting at. Like this dude Daniel Penny shouldn't be in jail because he shouldn't have had to choke this guy because this dude shouldn't have been on the street anyways. And the laws in New York, obviously, with weak DAs and people that are like, you know, well, let's give him a third chance, a fourth chance, a 30th chance, a 42nd chance. It's just weak, and it creates the culture that I'm obviously not
yeah.
gonna live in New
You
York, so
you should
I'm not for it.
that guy should not have been on the subway. Arrested 42 times, like
No,
arrested, 10 times. That's a lot to still be on the street. And I will say,
look,
I haven't, yeah,
I've been arrested about a dozen times in my life, so I'm not gonna say like, I'm like better than thou or anything, but I'm also not like fist fighting people on subways. You know what I
it's
mean?
still
Like
early in the
I got
podcast. We'll see.
yeah.
We're only about an hour in right
Yeah,
now. We'll see.
I've had a couple of public intoxes, and when I was younger, I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid. That's actually why I ended up moving to California. I had to kind of get out of my hometown, and I believe in second chances, and honestly, I believe in third chances. But when somebody's like mentally ill and they're fucking crazy and like they're violent, I'm never nobody's ever gonna look at me and be like, oh, this guy's gonna go out and kill somebody. You know what I mean? That's not me. If somebody's mentally ill and they're not in control of themselves, that's a dangerous
Yeah.
person. That's totally. How do you determine that? You got to get a psychiatrist or something. I don't know, but
Yeah, exactly. The guy shouldn't have been on the subway, first of all. And I will say in the I'll take a look at the video for sure after this, but just going off of what you're describing, the Marine, not many people realize this feeling unless you ride the subway consistently, but basically a kill box. Like
that's
the doors close, and for 5 minutes you have nowhere to go. You can't leave. If someone has a gun, if someone has a knife, and
yeah.
if this marine felt threatened, the best way to survive when someone is threatening you in a kill box environment is you have to create space first of all, but if they're aggressing you and you have a weapon, you have to aggress back because you have nowhere to run and you have to end the
Well, at that
conflict. You're fighting for your
at that
life.
point, you're not even yeah, well, de-escalation is the number one thing you should always do if
Yeah.
there's ever a fight situation. But at that point, if somebody's aggressing on you, you're not aggressing back. You're now defending
Yeah.
yourself. That's not that's no longer aggression. And I don't know if that's like the legal definition of it, but de-escalate always. But if somebody's coming at you, dude, you got to defend yourself. I mean, it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6, right?
100%. And it's very unnerving to be on the subway and the doors close and someone starts acting crazy because for 3 to 5 minutes you have absolutely nowhere to go. And
Yeah. And how long do those fights last? 3 to 5 minutes, probably.
exactly, yeah. So I it sounds like this guy felt obviously felt threatened in some way, but if he thought that this was going to end in a severe injury or death, which if you're in a street fight, like you get knocked out, bang your head on concrete, like some dude's stomping you on the subway, 5 minutes is plenty
Yeah.
of time to kill someone or like injure you. And
More than enough. Yeah.
and yeah, like it's people see the fights on the subway all the time, and just in general, they'll go like, "Oh, how did this person beat the shit out of another guy in the subway?" Like, you just walk away or you de-escalate. But when the doors close and someone starts acting wild, it's very, very uh, unnerving, and you have to be on guard. Like that's part of the reason why I stopped wearing like my AirPods on full blast on the subway, and sometimes I'll just wear them without anything playing because I don't want to be in a car where I can't really hear what's going on.
Well, I didn't mean to totally derail your interview. I just that
Derail.
when you mentioned the yeah, no pun intended. When you mentioned that the subway thing, though, I was reading about that yesterday, and I was actually on one of my friends' lives. This guy named Maj Toure. He's from Philly, and he runs an organization called Black Guns Matter, and he's a black dude that does like urban outreach on firearm safety, de-escalation, ownership, legal ownership, because of like unfortunately a lot of inner city urban youths and just black people in general in inner city environments that don't have access to the firearm education. They like even if they're trying to legally carry guns, they end up doing it illegally or something like that. And this dude does a shitload of outreach. I respect the fuck out of this guy, Maj Majtore, Maj Toure. If you're listening, check that dude out if you're interested in guns. He's badass. He's awesome.
Yeah.
But he was talking about Daniel Penny yesterday, and he was saying like this guy's not a hero, and I would agree. I don't think he's really a hero or anything, but I don't believe in not defending yourself. Like you were talking about like the apartment thing where somebody breaks into your apartment, and you're supposed to like jump out the fucking window like on the ninth floor. That's fucking insane.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm a big and by the way, I don't feel like it's derailing anything. I'm glad you brought it up because I'm gonna look into it now to kind of see what happened and see if there's any more conclusive evidence on it because I'm interested in how this all went down. But I'm a big believer in if someone's threatening your life, you don't get around to. You do what you have to do, and then the law will come for you later if it does. But like in that moment, you make sure you protect your life and the people you're with, and who gives a shit about the state laws at that point. Like it may fuck you over in the end, but at least you're alive. You can't be like thinking about like if someone breaks into my apartment, you know I hopefully in that moment I'm not going to be like, well, if I shoot this guy in the leg it's only 15 years, but if I kill him it's 25 to life. Like I'm just going to do whatever I have to do to stop that dude.
Yeah. That's some crazy Joe Biden bullshit, dude. Where Joe Biden at one time was like, "Well, just shoot him in the leg."
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about? That dude knows nothing about guns. You shoot for center mass. You don't shoot to kill. You don't shoot for the head. You don't shoot the leg. You don't shoot to injure. You shoot to stop the threat. That's it. Ever.
Yeah.
They got people. are so ignorant on gun laws and gun safety, gun training, gun rights. It's fucking crazy. And the reason that they're really ignorant on it is because a lot of that stuff is shadow banned or censored from social media, and it's not
Yeah.
taught in schools. Dude, like 60, 70 years ago, they taught firearm safety in schools. They should still do that. And Texas just passed a law where they're going to have an armed guard at every school that requests one or something like that, which I think is fucking great. I see no issue with that. I don't know about having armed teachers. I've heard
Yeah.
people talk about that. I haven't really thought through that, but having like an actual security guard at a school, what's the fucking downside to that? Every fucking, you know, corner store in an area that where there might be a shooting has a guard. Bars have fucking bouncers. I mean, people there's an armed society is a polite society because you don't know who has what, and you're not gonna fucking fuck around and talk shit
Yeah,
and
gun
try to pull
defense
something. You know?
gun defense in New York is seeing the person holding the gun and then doing a quick identity calculation in your head where you're like, well, this person probably had a rough childhood, so like I deserve what's coming to me right now. So you know what, just like, just take me out. I've had too many opportunities in my life. The tables have
Yeah,
to turn.
yeah.
That's gun defense in New
Just
York. What are your pronouns
just
again?
vent.
Okay, shoot me in the chest.
Yeah, that's fucking insane.
You mentioned that you went in and out of arrests when you were younger, and I'm interested in what Gary Faust, the teenager, was like. Because you grew up in Ohio, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. It was at the time pretty much the epicenter for the heroin epidemic. So when I was growing up, I had a lot of buddies that were doing heroin, shooting heroin, snorting heroin, overdosing. When
Boofing
I was
or
like,
no?
no, no, dude, that would kill you instantly.
Yeah.
And this was before fentanyl was really out of control. So like, this was people just straight up overdosing on heroin. Like it was a lot, dude. One of my first buddies that died from a heroin overdose was when I was 15, and he was a varsity wrestler. And a year after he graduated high school, he was 3 or 4 years older than me. I think he was 19. I was 15. He was a buddy of mine, and he ended up homeless. He was living at this guy's house. He quit doing heroin, and then he relapsed and shot up, or maybe he was snorting it. I don't remember, but he wasn't used to the his body wasn't used to it, didn't have the tolerance, and he fucking died. So the thing that I would say sort of dictated the trajectory of my childhood was the drug epidemic in Ohio. And it was really bad in Dayton because the two biggest drug trafficking highways in the country are 70 and 75, and they intersect in, guess where? Dayton, Ohio. So it was a lot of fucking, you know, a lot of heroin, a lot of it was just like a lot of fucked up stuff was happening, man. And the factories were all shutting down. Places like Middletown, Ohio, is an example of somewhere that was basically decimated by
Mm.
factories shutting down and heroin usage. And a lot of these people who worked in factories had, injuries and stuff that they were using painkillers to. Their parents were using painkillers, and then the kids started taking the fucking grandma's painkillers or the dad's painkillers from their factory job. I mean, the combination of the factory jobs leaving and going overseas, and the absolute complete overprescription of opioids and opiates and painkillers and all that kind of stuff uh, fucked up my hometown. And I lived in like a middle class suburb of Dayton, so I didn't even live in like the worst part of the city. So I honestly was probably lucky. If I would have lived on the east side, which is I'm white, so I would have lived on the east side, then I would have been 10 times worse off. So I'm actually pretty grateful that I was that my mom was, made enough money to have us in the suburbs, dude, to be honest.
Yeah. So you were friends with people in high school. Like in your high school, was heroin on the menu of casual things that you
Fuck
could do? Like alcohol,
yeah.
weed, heroin in your high school?
So bad, dude. It was out of control. It was crazy. The first time I saw heroin, I was probably like 15. Like I said, like
Wow.
my buddy OD'd. It was crazy, dude. Like I was always a like kind of a juvenile delinquent, and then as I got like a little bit older into my teenage years, I would say that I started becoming a criminal, and then I got in trouble for I basically burglarized a house that was under construction, and I got arrested. I got a felony 5 breaking and entering, and I almost went to prison when I was 18, but I got put on a diversion program because I was a first time felon. So up until I was 18, all my juvenile record was all misdemeanors.
Mm.
I probably got arrested from first time I was arrested. I was 13 years old. I got arrested in this like housing projects, being pissed drunk with my friend's older brother. Maybe I was 14. Passed out on the fucking sidewalk, dude. Like I was a kid. I didn't even know. I didn't know that alcohol was that strong, kind of shit. You know. Um, but between 14 and 18, probably over a 4-year period of time, I probably got arrested like 13, 14 times. And for all minor stuff, it was like all alcohol related stuff, or um, like disturbing the peace or some shit. I don't even remember anymore some
Yeah.
of these things. And a lot of these times I wasn't even like um, officially charged. They would call my parents and be like, "Dude, the Centerville police knew who I was." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like getting in trouble smoking weed at the park and shit like that. You know, like just really dumb shit. I was just a dumbass, really, to be totally frank. Um, but eventually, I got in some serious trouble. We started stealing a lot of shit. I was breaking into cars. I was selling a little bit of drugs with my buddies, sort of, not really that much. And then I got, like I said, I got a felony for I was high on heroin and had been drinking, and we did the old B&E,
B&E,
and
baby.
yeah, and that was the first time in my life where I was in jail, and I was like, oh shit, I might not actually be getting out of here, because I never had been bailed out of jail before. Like I was always like, I'll be in here a day or
Mm.
two and they'll let me out, which is always what happened, because I never did anything seriously bad, and then that happened, and then I was like, oh shit, life is real, and I'm not rich, so I can't just buy my way out of here. That was when I started putting those pieces together in my head. I thought, oh wait, I'm like a regular middle class, lower middle class. My dad didn't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
He so like my mom did decent, but my dad didn't make a ton of money. So it was like I kind of got the middle class, but also like for where I grew up, I was kind of a poor kid. So I don't know, man. I didn't have the money that the other kids had. Thankfully, a friend of mine, her dad was a lawyer, and since I was friends with her, he kind of gave me the hookup. We threw him some cash. He knew the judge. I think that's kind of how it worked out. I don't know how the backroom deals go in court, but basically, I got this diversion program, and I had to finish this program, which I ended up kind of fucking up the program a little bit anyways, but I kind of dodged a bullet. And then before I even finished it, I just one day I got in trouble at this party on New Year's because I threw a fucking beer bottle at this guy's head.
Good aim.
And
That's good
well,
aim. Were you going for center mass or were you going for the head?
dude, I wasn't following my training.
That's a good headshot,
this, was,
though.
this was prior to, well, dude, here's what happened. We were at a New Year's party at Wright State, and we're at my buddy's apartment. We're all getting fucked up, and this guy that lived in the apartment up two floors up, him and his buddies were being assholes. They had some chicks with them, and they were like talking shit, and we were getting into like sort of an altercation outside of this party, and he either he punched somebody in the face or something happened. I don't really remember, and and we were all kind of like having a standoff, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna fucking beam this dude with this 40-ounce bottle of Mickey's, and that's what I did. And then it started a big brawl, like, I mean, it
Fuck
was like
yeah.
a literal brawl. And then the cops showed up, but I got arrested, and they were like, cops were like, so what happened here? I was like, I don't know, man. I'm on a fucking program. I don't want to go to prison. I'm a fucking skinny white kid. You know what I mean? Because at the time, I didn't really work out. I was just like a punk, dude. I thought I knew everything, and really, I was just a dumbass.
Did you,
And
do you
I ended up.
I was gonna say, do you ever watch the old Jimmy Tatro videos from back in the day where it's like drunk versus sober, and he's going to frat
Uh,
parties? So, do you know Jimmy Tatro? Have you ever seen his
uh,
channel? So he started out making funny YouTube sketches when he was in a fraternity in college, and he would make a lot of videos where it's like the environment of being in a fraternity behind the scenes of what it's like. And there's one video where it's sober versus drunk, and Jimmy Tatro is like showing different situations what it's like being sober versus drunk, and he's in the kitchen, and the sober part, this guy bumps into him, and Jimmy's like, "Oh, sorry, dude, my bad. Like, didn't mean to be in your way." And then the drunk version of that was like some dude bumps him, like chest bumps him purposely, and Jimmy Tatro turns around and just fucking slugs him in the face, and then everyone starts screaming. They're like, "Yeah!" And he's like funneling fucking vodka through a bong, and he's like throws a bottle at another dude's head. So it sounds like it sounds like you were like in a Jimmy Tatro video. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, dude, that's I've always kind of been until a couple of years ago. Once I had a kid, my I got my drinking. I really curtailed it. I started behaving myself a lot better. But I was always a really wild ass drunk. It was always fun. If you like having fun, I was definitely the guy to drink with. But it was like the odds of us getting in trouble were like 20% every time. So like 1 out of 5 times I would get in trouble. Um, but yeah, dude, that ended up happening, and I got in trouble at that New Year's party. So I was like, I'm gonna. The cops let me go. I kind of talked my way out of it. It was crazy, but they let me go, and I was like, okay, if I get in trouble again, ever, I'm gonna fucking end up in prison because that was the stipulation of the program. It was basically in lieu of conviction. So if I would have gotten in any trouble, I would have done the full term of my
Mm.
sentence, which was 3 years. They put 3 years on the shelf. I think it was 2 years for my charge, and then I already was on probation, so I had another year that was already on the shelf. So the judge was like, he's like, dude, you're smart, but you're a dumbass. So if you fuck up again, we're throwing the book at you. And I was like, all right. So I ended up reaching out to my grandpa, who never really liked me. I still don't think he really does. He just doesn't agree with the way I live my life or the way I talk or really anything about me. But he had a farm out in Geneva, Indiana, and I went out there and worked on a farm with him for 4 or 5 months. I saved up a couple thousand, $3, $4, $5,000. I don't remember exactly. And then I bought an Amtrak ticket and got on the Amtrak train in Cincinnati and took the train of the Southwest Chief all the way out to L.A. And then I took the fucking Pacific Surfliner from L.A. to Santa Barbara. I had fucking $5,000 or whatever it was taped to my foot, and I just went out there with a bunch of cash. Lived in a fucking foreign exchange student house and studied film, and that's what started all the other fucking crazy shit. And eventually, I made my way out to Texas and went to the J school at UT. But yeah, that was how that went down.
Fuck
But
yeah.
I would say that drugs and crime were kind of what dictated my childhood to a degree. When I was before my parents got divorced, I think I actually would have had kind of a nice childhood. But they couldn't keep their shit together, so shame on them for that.
Yeah, it kind of trickled down. Uh,
Well, because parents were married. My dad was a car salesman, and then he kind of lost his mind when they got divorced. And I don't blame him. It happens. When you love a woman and she breaks your heart, it can fuck you up. But you gotta keep your shit together. So my dad kind of fell off after he got divorced, and it 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 really kind of like fucked our family up. My mom divorcing my dad. My mom's a sweetheart. I'm not trying to hate on her. She'll probably end up watching this and feel bad. But whatever. Next time, in another
yeah.
life.
So there are 1,000 different directions I could go with that. The thing that sticks out in my mind is I'm sure that we hung out around similar personalities in high school, where you have the athletes, you have the stoners, you have the nerds, and grow
I hung out with
yeah,
everybody,
hang out with
dude. I knew.
everyone. And growing up I went to high school also in Long Island, not far from Plainview. All boys Catholic school, but we'd go out and you meet all different types of people. But heroin was never on the menu. Like, there was alcohol, there was weed. Occasionally, if you wanted an Adderall for a PSAT, you just like ask one of your friends who had a prescription. And it's like, yo, could I get one? But that was the craziest thing that I knew people were doing. I'm sure that behind the scenes there's a lot more going on, but just like the difference in geography, how being in that intersection of a town where there's just heroin being trafficked in and out can just completely change what's accessible to you at an early age. Like, to me, it's like it's almost not a difference in it's not a difference in like willpower or personality per se, but like who knows what I would have done in high school if the access to different types of things was more
Right.
available and it was more common. Like if your friends are trying heroin and one day I'm like 4 Bud Lights deep and I'm 140 pounds in high school, so I'm like super fucked up, and someone pulls out a bag of heroin, it's like you just snort this shit. I'd probably be like a little scared at first, but I could imagine myself doing that. But it's crazy how just being in different locations when you're growing up can completely change the things that you're exposed to, and how that exposure can forge the path in your life.
Yeah, I mean, imagine being in a, like I said earlier, if I would have grown up with parents that were really poor. I mean, my mom, like I said, my mom has always been like a market analyst, and I don't mean like not like stock markets. She like basically does tests on commercials. She's like a market research analyst is what it would be. And she's very extremely intelligent. So she's always made decent money, like a little above the median average for the country. Um, so like that always allowed us to live in like a nicer, I say. I mean, we were pretty average, or maybe even a little bit lower income, but because like some of the people that where I grew up they had super nice shit. Um, but like if she didn't make that money, dude, and we lived in a shitty area, then I could have been 10 times more fucked. You know,
Yeah, 100
I mean,
percent.
the way Dayton is set up is that it's weirdly segregated still. The west side is the black ghetto, and the east side is the white ghetto, and then the suburbs are all sorts of mixed up. There was not a lot of racial. Uh, it was just black and white people, dude. That's
Yeah,
that's how I grew up. When I went to and I think that's why I love Mexican women, by the way. When I went to California and I started seeing Mexican women, I was like, oh my god, they're fucking beautiful. I think it's just because I'd never seen one before,
yeah.
really. Like I mean, I had. Don't get me wrong, I had. It wasn't widely available, and I fucking love Italians and Mexican women and Hispanic women. That's
Yeah,
my
it's like
thing,
it's
man.
like so it's like someone that doesn't try sushi until they're 25, and you're like for the next 2 years, all you eat, you're like, I'm just fucking
dude,
eating Mexican ass
dude,
and I'm eating sushi.
the first fucking time I had sushi, I was like 23. I'm not even making that up. Cause does that mean, see, that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes I say shit like that and I'm like, damn, did I grow up poor? Was I poorer than I thought I was? Cause when I moved to California, dude, and I made friends with these rich girls, I was like, what the fuck? I've been missing out on this. Like these bitches were getting like limos to prom and shit. Like it was just a fucking I had a completely different upbringing than other people. I mean, but then again, I think about it and I'm like, well, there's probably a lot of people that did have a similar upbringing to me. I just think that when I was growing up, I thought that I was like, middle of the road, and I don't think I realized like I wasn't as high up on the socioeconomic ladder as I thought I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean that makes sense because when you're a kid, everything is normal to you. You kind of think that
Right.
the bubble that you're in exudes to the vast majority of the world, and you feel that everyone else is living in a similar situation to you. And that was a huge realization shock to me. I'm living in the suburbs of Long Island, and I'm like, everyone fucking they have 8 temples in their town, and they live in a nice house. They're basic, like Long Island's a really nice place to live. And then I travel to other places, meet new people. Sports is a huge part of that, where we traveled across the country. We also like shipped in Dominicans to play on our team, like these fucking 16-year-olds that threw 94 miles an hour. And like I'm playing with kids that just you know they grew up using milk cartons for fucking baseball gloves, and I'm just like,
That,
this is like insane to me. And you start to learn that
that's
not everyone lives like
fucking
you.
that's like actual poverty. That's a lot. That's fucking crazy,
Yeah.
dude. See, that's what I'm saying. Like every once in a while, I'll think, did I grow up poor? And then I'm like, not really. If you growing up in America, dude, you're probably doing pretty good. I mean, I don't like doing like that. I don't like throwing like a fucking, pity party for myself either. I always fucking hate when people do that. Like, oh my God, my life was so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever, dude. If your life was hard, it probably was just testing you and really helped you cut your teeth because I'm fucking mentally stronger than 95% of people because of the fact that I honestly kind of threw myself into situations and fucked my own shit up. It's all my own fault. Take responsibility, move on, you know? I just don't like people that, you know, there's a difference between like bitching and complaining. You know what I mean? I'll bitch about something all fucking day and but I'll do something about it. But complaining is when you bitch about something and you just never do anything. Like just woe is me bullshit. I fucking hate that.
To me, yeah, bitching is entertaining complaints. Like if someone's bitching about
Yeah.
something and I'm like, I'd listen to this. I'm just like, you
Yeah.
keep going, feed that direction. But if someone starts complaining and it's just like about how the tuna salad doesn't taste the same at this deli anymore, and it's just like nails on a chalkboard, then it just
Yeah.
becomes unbearable.
Hey, by the way, funny, food is something that I think is always a really good barometer for how spoiled somebody is. Because I grew up eating a lot of microwaved meals. My mom microwaved a lot of shit. She worked a lot. And my dad would like make macaroni and cheese and feed us like gas station hot dogs. And my body's probably just gotten used to it at this point. Either that or I'm going to die in like 5 years. But I'm 30 years old now, and I still eat that shit, and it tastes good to me. And I don't like. I'll go have like a nice steak somewhere, and I'm like, yeah, it tasted good, but I could also eat a fucking $2 hot dog. I just don't give a fuck at all. And when I see people that are like, oh, dude, how could you eat that? Oh my god, I'm like, okay, so you had a mom that cooked for you growing up. That's what that
Yeah.
means. Like you had the privilege of having a mother that had the time to go and cook you fucking enchiladas or cook you fucking mashed potatoes or something. I mean, don't get me wrong, my mom cooked occasionally, but not very often. I mean, I really was raised on like microwave food and fucking logs of chicken slowly rolling on a
On this,
at a
yeah,
7
those 7-Eleven, yeah,
at a,
yeah, yeah. So I
we
was
didn't have
I was lucky because I got a good spectrum of that because I'm 29 years old. My mom started a speech therapy business 30 years ago, so her business kept getting more and more and more successful to where I remember going to McDonald's and picking up like the egg and cheese sandwiches for breakfast every weekend or just like having those sort of cheap meals. And then as her business got more successful and my dad's a part of it now too, like they put in a projector downstairs and I'm like, that's different. And all of a sudden, like we start getting meals and not meals, but like my mom's spending more time at home cooking. And like as a kid, you don't know like this is because your parents are starting to make more money. You're just like, there's more toys in the house and we're eating better food. And this is amazing.
so your parents were married.
Yeah, yeah, they're still together.
Dude, I think that is by far the number one factor that determines how successful a person is if their parents were married. I swear to God.
Not in stand up
I've
comedy
thought
or comedy.
well, hey,
In most
I
things.
take that back. I do think that it determines. Okay, yeah, I guess in different industries it does reflect differently. But as a generalization, which I don't generally like to do, but I will generalize this time. I do think that parents being married is probably the biggest signifier of that. And I say that because it teaches the kid, it shows them how um, a number of things. I think it shows them like how to stay with something and not give up on something, but it also teaches like relationship dynamics between men and women and like on a personal level, but also how they communicate to solve problems with their kids and stuff like that. Because my parents didn't really get along until I was like my late teenage years, and my dad would complain about my mom. My mom would complain about my dad, not as much, but it was like like I would watch. I would. I didn't have like a really any example or role model for how to communicate with people, especially women, dude. Because my mom's not a very emotional, like traditional woman. She's very like business, kind of callous, kind of cold. She's German,
Hmm.
so like with women, I'm like I've always just struggled to like understand how to communicate with women, which is funny because I've been with a lot of women, so it's not like I have trouble like getting women. It's I have trouble like actually understanding how to treat them properly. So it's always been something I've had to work a lot harder at.
Yeah.
And it's not that not that I treat women poorly necessarily. I just like it's just something that's like probably my Achilles heel in life is women, dude.
I would say the biggest thing relationship wise that having parents that have been married for they just celebrated their 46th anniversary, which is fucking
That
insane.
is so fucking crazy,
Insane,
dude.
dude.
I mean, congrats. That's
They
awesome, dude. That's so fucking cool to
I
me.
would say that I've been a third party to so many tense and just back and forth horrific shouting matches that none of it's ever really gotten physical, but like there's been a lot of just like really just like fucked up things that have flown around in the 29 years that I've been alive that have gotten less and less over time as my parents have gotten older and they're in their 60s now. But like I've seen two people argue the shit out of things and they sit in the pocket and they're like they don't run. They're like my dad and my mom is really good. Like my dad will say something and my mom just like she's almost like a quarterback moving around where she's like looking for the entrance point of like how to progress the situation into something that's can be
Productive.
saved or can like that's not going to totally derail it and end up uh like you can't move forward from there. And that happens a bunch of times and I'm just like logging this information in the back of my head and then all like I'm 19, 20 years old and I'm starting to deal with that shit myself. And
So
I'll be talking to
you
my
have a
other friends that are like, "Oh my god, I can't deal with this girl, like she's doing crazy." And I'm like, "What did she do?" And I'm like, "She did they're like she did X, Y, and Z," and I just couldn't take it anymore. And there are things like not that you should take bullshit from people. You should always stand up for yourself. But like I feel like I've internalized sitting in the pocket during fights and not necessarily like looking for the out, but just being like you almost like trying to slip a punch and be like, all right, like how do
right.
I come back from this to the point where we can both you don't have to fucking love each other like not like a naive happily ever after at the end of each argument, but like where you can just talk to each other for like human beings.
Yeah, yeah. And it's
To go from that
you so you had a
animalistic to the human, I feel like I've learned just like seeing how to go from like those primal shouting and instincts, like what the path is from there to like just sitting around each other and being a human being. It's been a good lesson in
yeah,
that.
you had a roadmap for what basically what you could like how to operate with with a person in a relationship dynamic like that, which is again like um that's what I was kind of saying about the marriage thing is like you were able to see that, like you said, you were logging that in the back of your head, whether it was conscious or subconscious. You still have that unconscious information back there, you know. It's like it's almost like Freudian in a way because you're just picking up what your parents did and trying to replicate it because they were a good role model in your mind. Whereas people who have parents that are divorced, they're like, you know, and not always, but sometimes you can have it like your parents are divorced and you're like, well, they didn't communicate right, so I look at them, I look lesser of them. I mean, I definitely don't look at my parents as like good role models for how to communicate properly because they're both kind of fucking nuts, dude. You know, my mom's very like analytical, computational, doesn't have a lot of emotion, and my dad's just pure fucking vitriol, charisma, fucking chaotic, like emotional. You know, he's Italian, dude. He's like everything he says is fucking crazy. You know, I mean, I picked up a lot from him, but uh a lot of I picked up how to have like kind of like that swagger from him because my dad has always been kind of you know, a little bit of a playboy, I guess you could say. You know, when I was like 18 in high school, my senior year in high school, he calls me up and he's like, "Hey, dude, let's go meet over at Johnny's Pizza and get a slice." And I'm like, "All right." Because that means he's got to tell me something.
Yeah.
We get over there and he's like, "So, you know that hot girl I've been banging, that like 21-year-old?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, she's pregnant. You're gonna have a sister." I was like, "Jesus fucking Christ, dude."
That's
Um,
fucking
but that's like,
amazing. Jesus.
That's the way my dad communicates, bro. Like that's what I grew up with. So I had that on one end, and on the other end, my mom would be like, "So we need to make a 4-year plan for fucking this and this and all this other fucking really robotic communication." So it's just that my parents are like polar opposites, bro. My mom's blonde hair, blue eyes, like traditional conservative woman, and my dad's like covered head to toe in tattoos and uh, looks like a psychopath, dude. Like
Yeah.
it's a
So
saying that they were ever together
your mom's more calculated, more planning for the future, and your dad's more like blunt force
in the moment.
conversation.
Yeah.
I fuck this
It's
bitch,
for
and I fuck this bitch, and Stacy's gonna be here in 9 months. Get used to it,
yeah,
and that's a funny
exactly, exactly.
combination.
Well, dude, it's funny too because my dad's extremely charismatic, and he was a salesman, and my mom is extremely smart. Like my mom's fucking 10 times smarter than my dad. But when you have no charisma to back up your intelligence and you can't communicate your ideas to people properly, nobody wants to fucking hear what you have to say. And when you're not that smart and you just shoot from the hip all the time, eventually people realize you're full of shit.
Yeah,
So that's kind of what happens.
it's like
That's how I view both my. I love them though, dude. Don't get me wrong. They're both good people. They're just fucking annoying, dude.
yeah. I feel like there's always those things that you can find in your parents that annoy the shit out of you. But again, like everyone has different situations. There was so I wrote this down when we were talking about the drugs before and growing up around heroin because I'm interested to ask you this question. Like, what's something that you learned about heroin or people on heroin that you wouldn't see in the documentaries? Because like that's the first time I saw heroin was like a Netflix documentary, and I still don't. I may have seen it once in college in person, not even sure that it was actually heroin, but I've still never been really around people who have done it or tried it.
I they're dude, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know what your perception of what it is on a documentary is, but what I would say, something about heroin that people might not know is that it's just fucking dirty, dude. I mean, there's people. It's like crack, dude. Like I've seen people digging around in the back seat of their car for a fucking bag of heroin before, or just like a little bit of powder. I've seen people shoot fucking needles into their toes. I've seen people fucking, dude. I injected heroin to the point that my fucking hand was turning yellow. I was developing like jaundice, dude. It was fucked up. I mean, I've definitely
Was that from infection or is that from the heroin
I
itself?
don't even dude. Well, cuz I was doing the what's really dangerous, which was I was fucking shooting heroin and I was drinking and I was taking clonazepam too. So I was taking like a death cocktail and I think it was just shutting down what is that? Your liver, your kidneys.
Yeah.
I think it was like destroying my insides. But when my hands started turning yellow, dude, I was like, I'm okay. I'm done with this. Like I've never see that's the thing, dude. I've never really. This is gonna sound bizarre after everything I just said, but I was never really addicted to heroin. I just did it because it was around, and I've always liked kind of uh, well, not always, up until my son was born, I completely quit doing drugs
Mm,
for a period of time until he was kind of taken away from me, and then my substance abuse problems kind of came back. But that's a whole other fucking conversation.
yeah.
I never was like addicted to heroin, or yeah, I was never addicted to it. It's funny.
That doesn't sound bizarre at all because this is obviously a much less intense drug. But I used to dip all the time when I
That's
was playing baseball, and I was like, I'm addicted to dip. I don't know how I'm gonna stop. But as soon as I left college baseball and I was like not around dip anymore, I just didn't even think about it. And like
dude,
if someone
dude.
has a cigarette, I'll smoke it, but I don't necessarily seek out nicotine like I thought I would.
Speaking of, I might go grab a cigarette real quick, but no,
Hell yeah.
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like when I left Ohio, I maybe did a heroin like maybe I could count on my hand how many times I ever did it again after that. It was just a handful of times in California, and and then I had another friend fucking. I think he was on heroin and he wrecked his fucking car and got decapitated, and I was like, dude,
Jesus.
I'm never gonna touch it again. Yeah, but it's it's the same principle. It's like who you were around. Also, I moved away from Ohio and I never really got in any trouble again because I was not hanging around with fucking criminals that were had a negative influence on me. You know, like, I mean, the only thing that I probably really ever been addicted to is probably just like having a good time. If that sounds, and I don't mean like in a conventional way, like, hey, let's go uh have like a nice dinner. I mean, like, I'm talking about like having like a wild time. Like, I like the kind of the adrenaline rush of you know
I feel that.
uh
I feel that.
wild.
That's how I feel like that is the adult version of drug use, because that's how I think about things now, where I don't necessarily get pressured to take a crazy cocktail of drugs or get as fucked up as possible, which is how I did it a lot of times in college. Now I think, is this going to enhance my experience tonight? What am I doing? I'm going to a concert, I'm going to dinner with friends, I'm going on a date. Like, what am I doing? And if I'm offered drugs or I have something on me, will this make it better? Will this make me have a better time? And will this be like a more fulfilling time because of this drug? Like, there's a book, I don't know if you checked it out, but Drug Use for Adults by Dr. Carl Hart. He's a he's he
Let me look it up.
Yeah, I think it's Drug Use for Adults. But it'll come up if you just search that, Dr. Carl Hart. And he is a neuroscientist at Columbia University that talks about all of the experiments that he's performed with drugs and interviews that he's done with people on drugs, and his path to doing drugs in a more fulfilling manner. And he's done, like, he purposely addicted himself to heroin just to have the withdrawal and get off it, to like basically log it. He's done Molly, he's done fucking like anything you could think of. He's tried it, and he talks about like that was probably the book that changed my perspective. But like, what is going to make your life more fulfilling? Sometimes that's being sober, but sometimes that's also, having a few drinks, or getting some good quality Molly and rolling at a festival, or taking an Adderall and fucking, you're out until 6 a.m. and it doesn't become a regular thing. And everyone's different. Like, if some people are completely sober, some people are getting fucked up all the time, and some people are, everything in between. But that book really changed my perspective on drug use.
Yeah, drugs are not for everybody, though. I would definitely say that. A lot of people can't handle them. And I also do think that there's certain people's brains are predisposed to mental illness. And
Oh
when you
yeah,
add drugs into that, it'll fucking ruin your brain. I've seen a lot of people completely lose their mind from taking, like, having amphetamine psychosis from taking too much Adderall, or pretty much burning holes in their head from Molly and becoming bipolar, or like, believe it or not, I mean, acids obviously develop schizophrenia in people. I'm also going to say, though, that if you can handle your drugs, you should do them, because it can also enhance, people that are musically inclined. People that, podcast a lot will take a lot of amphetamines and drink caffeine and take, whatever stimulant they can. But there's definitely, there's ups and downs to all of it, man. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say that you shouldn't do drugs, but I I would err on that side, because I don't think that it's super healthy for everybody. And mainly because I've just seen so many people not handle their shit.
yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? But I'm also not gonna say that people should be like getting arrested and going to jail because of taking drugs either. That's the whole drug war is that's a whole other fucking weird, like, I don't even know where. Well, I do know where it started. That's another thing. It's just a headache that it still even exists, especially with things like weed, dude. Smoking weed, and people that are in jail for smoking weed is it's crazy that that's even still around, man. Even in places like Texas, like a lot of places in Texas, they don't really give a shit anymore.
Imagine.
I'm gonna go grab a cigarette real quick.
Yeah, go do that. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. I wanted to ask you about the ladybird killer, because I've been following your interviews on the YouTube channel, and just to set this up, so you've been extensively covering the possible serial killings going on in Austin, Texas, that many are describing as the Ladybird Lake Killer or the Rainy Street Wrangler. And people are disappearing from Rainy Street at an alarming rate and ending up in the lake. you've interviewed people who have found potential victims in the lake and even spoke to NYPD detective Kevin Gannon about the case, who's investigated a ton of lake bodies and lake murders for over 20 years. And there's also a Facebook group dedicated to the alleged serial killings with over 88,000 people, which I just joined. And the conspiracy theories I'm posting there are fucking insane.
Yeah,
Like
there's a lot in there.
what have you learned about the Lady Bird Lake killings since you've started covering it? Like, what the hell is going on with all of that shit?
So so basically the this started because I saw a post about it or something, and somebody was like, "You should investigate this." So I said, "All right, let's do it." Actually, no. What happened was we were doing the Come and Talk It show. It's on Sundays, and it's a lot. It was a live show. The one I was talking about, we were talking about the homeless stuff way back in the day, and the guy who runs the show, we kept hearing rumors from people on Rainey Street, on 6th Street, about people being drugged and then disappearing and winding up dead in the lake or whatever. And basically, I was like, all right, well, let's look into this. So we titled the show, "Is There a Serial Killer in Austin, Texas?" And then all of a sudden it blew up, and we kind of just brought that to attention. We didn't really know exactly if there was a killer or not. We were just asking a question, and then the Lady Bird Lake group on Facebook blew up, and people were really interested in it. So we went out and asked some people on Rainey Street what they thought, and we got a bunch of comical drunk answers. But I also did actual investigation. I talked to that detective Kevin Gannon. He's a retired NYPD detective. He's an awesome dude, and basically the conclusion I've come to is that it's still inconclusive. I don't think there's necessarily somebody could say that there is a serial killer in Austin, but there's what is for sure happening, according to like video footage and first person accounts and stuff like that, is that these people are probably being drugged, and there's a drugging issue in Austin. I was drugged at a bar on 6th Street once,
Oh shit.
and yeah, and they're disappearing and winding up in the lake. Whether they're being mugged or killed or what's going on there, I don't know. But they've all pretty much been men, and a lot of them have been white or Hispanic men. And not every one of the deaths is totally related, but there's definitely a series of people that there's been a series of deaths that have been very suspicious and are probably murders.
Yeah, because
Um,
it sounds like just based on the interviews that I've seen with you, and then going through the Facebook group, people drop a lot of articles in the group anytime something pops up in the news feed, and it sounds like people are going missing, and then they're being kept alive for some period of time because their bodies aren't decomposed. Like if someone what fell
yeah,
in the
like they're
lake for 2 weeks, the body doesn't have 2 weeks of decomposition, so it's like they're at another location and then they're being dumped into the lake, which is super suspicious, but they're not being logged as criminal cases, which is insane to me. Like that wouldn't.
because it's hard to determine the cause of death when somebody's body is found in water, basically.
Yeah.
And they don't always test for roofies, which would be GHB.
Yeah, which is insane. I feel like that would be the first thing that you would test for if someone winds up in a lake and, the last time they were seen was at a bar or wandering shit blasted down
Right.
6th Street. You'd be like, "All right, well, maybe this person had 25 drinks, but also maybe someone put something in their drink and then snatched them up on the way back to their apartment." So I don't know why they wouldn't be testing for those types of drugs. That's insane to me.
Dude, when I realized that they don't test for GHB, I thought it was really weird too. I would have thought that would have been one of the number one things, especially given that there's you know, li- in Austin, man, there's a drug culture obviously, but there's also a lot of like sexual assaults and stuff. So you would think that they would be getting tested for stuff like that, but I don't think, for whatever reason, that's not. I don't know if it's more expensive or if that's a newer issue that's cropping up, but they don't test for all that stuff. So what are you gonna do? They need to change that policy.
What's the prevailing theory among people in Austin that you've spoken to? Do they think it's a serial killer? Is it just, people wandering drunk as fuck falling in a lake. I could see someone, you know, maybe they're insane, like there's mental problems, they're fucked up, maybe they're homeless, and they just pass out on the side of a lake and roll in. But I can't see, even in my most fucked up states where I've been, like blacking out for 8 to 10 hour period, I don't see myself just falling into a lake and I don't know. Maybe it's happening. I'm sure it's a combination of both, but it seems like there's something uh, at least with the drugging going on, if not a coordinated effort to take people away, kill them, and then dump
Right.
them in the lake.
Well, there was some people that got busted for drugging and robbing people, so it could be something like that where they're drugging and robbing people, and then it's going wrong and they're dying. It could also be, somebody that's a serial killer. It could be that as well. But generally speaking, if you take GHB, even if you've had one or two beers, you're toasted, dude. That stuff will black you out instantly. You lose motor function, you lose all control, you lose your memory. There was a guy who his name was Christian Pugh, and he back in 2018, I believe, he went missing for like 3 days. He came to town to see, I think, Tom Segura perform, and he got drunk and was found 3 days later in like the bushes, kind of in a rough condition. And there's a couple theories. One of the theories was that he got drunk on Rainey and then wandered off and fell off the Congress Bridge into the water. And then other theories are that he was drugged and robbed and beaten and thrown in the water, and they thought he was dead.
And he was alive in
It's
the
there's
bushes when they found him. He was
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah. He actually did a podcast about it. I believe it was the Honeydew podcast with Ryan Sickler, and he talked about it. It's behind a paywall, so I didn't actually I didn't watch that footage, but that was there's like I said, there's some theories out there, but nothing conclusive. What the one thing I said that I did just say that I think is pretty factual is that regardless, there's a drugging issue, a culture of drugging in Austin that is a big problem, and I think it's what's leading to these people dying, whether it's um, intentional or not is irrelevant because to drug someone is malevolent at its core.
Mm,
So anybody being drugged, the person doing the drugging is a bad person, no matter what. Drugging someone without their knowledge, you know what I mean?
yeah.
I think that goes without saying.
So if it's in like in your case when you got drugged and did you end up getting robbed or assaulted that night? Like
Uh,
did anything happen to you?
so- No, I was just talking fucking crazy, dude. I took a drug test the next morning and I had been drugged with benzodiazepines, which is like probably a Xanax or a
Xanax, yeah.
clonazepam or something like that. But I blacked out completely, and my friend, I had FaceTime my friend, and she said I was talking about going fucking scuba diving or something. Just, I mean, like not making any sense at all. And the people that were with me said that I was just all over the place, like you know. Yeah, like I said, I'm kind of a wild when I drink, but not like that. Like I was incoherent. I don't remember anything, and I woke up like on the floor at my house the next day, and my truck was in my driveway. So either and somebody said I drove home, and I had only had 2 drinks, literally. But yeah, I was definitely drugged, and I'm just glad I'm not dead, dude, or got like. I mean, imagine that. Imagine getting drugged and then not knowing you're drugged and driving and getting a DUI. Like, I mean, that's so fucked up.
Yeah, you think you're
It's
having 2 drinks and all of a sudden it hits you in your car and you just fucking like you can't even keep your neck straight. I'm just trying to think
right,
of what the motivation would be for the person that
dude.
drugged you, because I could obviously the motivation if it's a guy that slips something in a girl's drink, obviously trying to get them tipsy and like do something sexual to them, bring them back to their place. Like
Right.
like the intention there is obvious, but like for you, is it just like some guy
I
dropping a
could
Xanax in a
be
drink and just sitting back and being like, "Let me just watch this dude get more belligerently blacked out, and this is like it's his entertainment for the night." Like he's just sitting back, being like, "Check this dude out! I just dropped 2 bars in this guy's drink."
right. Yeah, it could be something like that. It could be somebody Dude, I mean, there could have been a gay dude trying to rape me or something.
Could
Who
have.
knows, man? I mean,
Or
it's Austin, Texas.
he was looking for the opportunity to rob you and just didn't
Or
happen.
yeah,
Like he's waiting for you to leave, but you were with your friends or something. He's like, ah, it's not gonna happen tonight.
yeah, something like that. Like I said, there's not really any way to know that, but it's yeah, dude. I feel like a broken record, but yeah, there's some sort of malevolent entertainment value to that. Whatever the end game is, it's something that I mean, most of those deaths, those people they weren't heavy drinkers. Like one of the guys, I think it might have been Jason John. That dude didn't even know how to swim. He hated water. He didn't want to ever be around water, and then he winds up in water. That doesn't even make sense. They're all very suspicious, but I don't think anybody can really draw any solid conclusions still. Um, Gannon was looking into it, and we checked out the spot where a guy found a dead body, and we posted that. I got that video up on the channel. It's there was some graffiti around the body, 666, a weird upside down cross that almost looked like a female symbol. A lot of people were saying they thought it might be a gay guy that was closeted, that was going after dudes, or a woman that was, bitter about a men or something. That's all speculation. We can speculate all day. It's healthy speculation is good, but there's my one buddy said that he thought that they might be trying to say there was a serial killer on Rainey Street because they wanted to bring down the value of the property over there because there were some holdouts that didn't sell out to these big real estate developers. I mean, that's a full-blown conspiracy. Again, no real evidence there, but it's again speculation. But it was a really weird sort of month or so there where everything I was doing was tied into this alleged serial killer, and
Yeah.
it didn't never really came to fruition. I mean, we didn't catch a serial killer. Weirdly enough, some guy came out and admitted to having killed some people that were totally unrelated to any of that, and there was a serial killer. It
Yeah.
was a totally different guy.
Different body of water.
That's I mean, no, these people weren't even being found in water. This guy was killing people in a different way.
Oh,
And it was in
geez.
Austin. It was like stranger than fiction Twilight Zone shit where this guy was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not that serial killer, but I'm a different serial killer."
Dude,
You know what I mean?
I'm just trying to imagine the commercial real estate agent that's he's pissed off because he's trying to buy these properties on Rainey Street that the owners aren't selling, and he's talking to other people in his office, and they're like, "What are you gonna do? Like, look into the zoning regulations?" And he's like, "No, I think I'm gonna put Xanax in people's drinks and then drag him into the lake to try to bring down the property value."
Yeah,
And his
he's
his coworkers are like, "Good one, Kevin," and he's just going out at night, just fucking killing people.
gloves covered in dirt.
Yeah. Look, if he was
Um,
selling my
I mean,
house, I would want him because he's definitely gonna get a good price for my house. But it's there's
yeah,
only
my
so many
house is
people.
listed. Yeah, my house is listed right now. Fucking hit me up, dude.
He'll do
Um,
whatever he has to do to make the sale. That's for sure.
Job done. But no, I don't think it was anything like that. Like I said, it kind of hit the national spotlight because we were talking about it on the radio show, just asking questions. I mean, that's what that show is. It's AM talk radio. So we talk about shit that's on our minds, and we weren't saying that there was or wasn't a serial killer, but we were just bringing to light some rumors that had been circulating in Austin for years. I mean, people had been saying that there was a serial killer in Austin in the bar scene for fucking 5 years. And some people even say that it goes back further than that, but I had never heard anything like that going back further than that. I had heard through the grapevine before people say there's a serial killer on Rainey or on 6th Street, and I never really bought into it until there was a series of deaths that escalated really fast that were all found in Lady Bird very very recently, and that's why we decided to look into it. But again, nothing conclusive. Given that I'm a journalist, I want to make sure that anything that I do say that I'm positive about, that I need to make sure I have my facts straight.
Yeah.
So there's no real answer to that question, but it was just a really bizarre thing. And then everybody's trying to tie all these different things together, and the only person I think that could really be an authority on that would be Kevin Gannon. And he said again, he was like, I need to see autopsies and stuff. So he, like, as a detective, he's got the same he's got the same MO that I do as a journalist. You got to make sure you have your ducks in a row before you make any claims. But the stories that he was telling about up in Chicago and in New York and in those areas, you can look all that stuff up. He was in a documentary on like Oxygen or A&E or something, and he details all that. And there's definitely some other stuff on YouTube that more in depth talks about it. But my forte is just interviewing people and sort of getting like expert opinions on stuff. So I didn't do a super deep dive into the autopsies, but there were definitely some suspicious deaths all in
Yeah.
the same area with looked the same.
There's a clip of Kevin Gannon 5 years ago on Dr. Phil where he's talking about the smiley face killers, and I think that's the documentary that you're talking about. I haven't seen the
Yeah,
documentary, but I saw his interview on Dr. Phil where he talks about uh, how he thinks, and again, like it's a theory, it's not something that's concrete evidence, but how he thinks that there are hundreds of murders in different cities around the country that could be connected to essentially a network of serial killers
like a
that are,
yeah,
very similar uh, autopsies, similar signs at the scene with certain types of graffiti, MOs, stuff like that. But yeah, that was wild when I was listening to that. What was the connection to the smiley face killers when you were talking to Kevin Gannon? Because I remember him talking about that a little bit, like possibly having a connection with the graffiti.
the satanic graffiti I think was the MO for the smiley face killers, which is different than the happy face killer. Not to get the two conflated, but there was the idea was that it was a satanic cult that was killing people because like some sort of member initiation. It was almost like a gang of Satanists, I believe, like occult stuff. I don't know all the details of it. I just know that the only death in Austin that had satanic graffiti around it was the one that we found that was the body wasn't even in the water, and the guy who found the body said that there was a suspicious person that was there um, watching the scene as he called the police, and then once the police showed up the guy left. So he could have this guy that found that body could have potentially stumbled onto somebody being murdered in progress, which is totally insane. That interview can be found on
Yeah.
the channel. It's titled like interviewing man who found body or something like that. I don't
Yeah.
remember it's just a generic title because I didn't have a
I'll
lot of
I'll put
info
it
at the
in
time. But
the podcast notes. I'll link that with the channel so people can check it out.
yeah, so but yeah, nothing else really other than that. There's not been a lot come to. I mean, I just find it so hard to believe that there were that many deaths back to back to back. It just is so fucking bizarre. But at the same time,
It's like 4 in 2 months or something, like 4 bodies found in the lake in the last couple
yeah,
months, 4 or 6. Like
yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot.
At one point, yeah, it was in like an 8-week period of time. It was 4 or 5 bodies, which is a lot. Yeah, what was a spike? It was an anomaly, a statistical anomaly, which is why people were freaking out about it. And the police just kept saying, "Oh, there's nothing going on. There's nothing going on." But at the same time, they were increasing patrols over at Rainey Street and at Ladybird. So it was like you're kind of giving a mixed message here, but also at the same time, the police don't want to freak people out. So I kind of understand what they were doing, but they weren't being very transparent with the families of the people who died, and I think that was causing some friction and caused the families to speak out, and that's what blew up that Facebook group. And then there was people that were grifting off of the deaths, and there was a guy named Ken something that was promoting his app. I mean, it was the whole thing was
I can't imagine
bizarre.
some people are like listing family members who have been victims of the serial killers in a Facebook group, and some guys like, I just dropped this yoga app in the app store. Like if you guys wouldn't
Dude,
mind checking it out, it could be good for trauma. Releasing the traumatic uh,
yeah, well, the guy,
areas of your body.
the this guy was a marketing director for this startup app, and the app itself had nothing to do with anything that was even related. I mean, it was fucking crazy. When I saw the guy making those posts, he was like on TikTok, and I thought, this dude is for sure doing this for clout and to make money. I mean, it was obvious to me. And then when it came out that he was like full of shit. People were surprised, and I thought, you guys didn't see this coming?
I mean, if he ends up being the killer, that would be the wildest marketing campaign of all time. He's like, how am I going to hype this product? How am I going to hype this app? I'm going to kill a bunch of
We're gonna
people. People will start a group to try to find out who the killer is, and I'm going to market my app in the fucking group.
yeah, we're gonna find out that guy ended up being a real estate agent or something.
Yeah. So speaking of the families, I also saw a bit of the chat that you had with Mitchell Gutierrez, the brother
Yep.
of Martin Gutierrez, who was found in the lake in 2018, and there was a lot of friction there with like
No, it was more recent than that, I believe. It might have been
or
2019.
2019.
Nonetheless,
Yeah, like that was a wild story with like them trying to find out what happened with Martin in the bar, and the bar wouldn't give up the security footage, and like all that
yeah.
shit was crazy.
So stuff like that is what I think was causing people to sort of, you know, to be like, what the fuck is going on? Because they got um he was at Lustre Pearl, and then he went to Alibi, and they got the footage from Alibi, and he only had one drink there, but he was already all fucked up. And actually, I don't even know if they served him at Alibi. I think he had one drink according to credit card statements at Lustre Pearl, which is over on Rainey, and it's a hop, skip, and a jump down to the next bar. And the dude had one drink on his credit card, and then the footage from the next fucking bar, the guy's wasted. I mean, that's just weird. And then Lustre Pearl wouldn't give the footage up because maybe it could be something as simple as they didn't want to be liable for this guy's death and be sued or something like that. I don't know, man. I guess the owner or one of the bartenders could have drugged the guy. There's a there's a lot of there's a lot of possibilities, but I mean, on 6th Street, I've heard of plenty of times people being drugged by bartenders, and that's what their theory was. They're like, "Oh, that guy drugged me," because there was a period of time when on 6th Street, around the time I got drugged, a bunch of other people got drugged as well. I mean, a bunch, dude. It was like 10 people, all in the same bar,
Yeah.
it's all in the same bar. So it was like a serial. See that? Okay, so that's the conclusion I can kind of come to is that there might not be a serial killer, but there's definitely a serial drugger or druggers in Austin. And at the very least, there's a culture of drugging people here, whether it's to rob them or rape them or for entertainment purposes or whatever. It's fucking sick,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, especially if the owner of the bar or someone involved with running the bar is not giving up security footage that could answer what happened to this guy at night. That makes you think like, why not just fucking give over your security camera footage that's available for 30 days?
They said that it was deleted, but that's not how the where they store the data from those cameras. They're automatically saved for 7 to 30 days, like at the least. And it was 6 days later, but it was deleted, and they sent them the wrong footage, and they deleted the right footage. I mean, it was just a total fucking shit show. So it sounds very suspicious to me, like they were trying to cover something up. And when you try to cover something up like that, and you're not transparent, it leads people to think that you could be doing something worse than what you're actually doing.
Yeah, it was deleted by the bartender when he went in and dragged it into the trash. Have you
Yeah.
ever seen the movie Promising Young Woman?
No.
So
What's that?
there's this girl that she one of her friends it's been about a year since I've seen it, but I think one of her friends was raped and then killed, and the lead actress in the movie, in the aftermath of her friend's death, pretends to be drunk when she goes home with guys that she suspects to be rapists, and then will kind of like pass out, like do like, she's like on drugs or, pretend to be super fucked up, and then the guy will go forward and try to have sex with her when she's essentially passed out, and then she's like completely sober and is like, what are you doing? Like, I was just unconscious. And that's like the premise of the movie. Like, she tries to catch like these rapist dudes. I feel like you need someone like, since all the victims are just like guys in Austin, like they look like these white athletic dudes for the most part. I feel like you need someone that just goes around Rainey Street, pretends to be fucked up and is actually completely sober, and just waits for like the serial killer to try to grab them, fucking just like stumbling down the street, and you just like shoot up and you're like, what are you doing, bitch? And then you fucking boom. you get them right there.
Yeah, you entrap them
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. So I wanted to end off with a an interesting tidbit that I had heard you talk about on one of your podcasts, which is that you, your dad, and your brother have an interesting ritual where you go to the strip club every Christmas.
Yeah.
How did that start?
Um, I don't even know, man. It just kind of organically happened, I guess. But yeah, pretty much every Christmas for the past, I don't know if we went last year or not, but every Christmas for the past like 10 years, I've went to the strip club with my dad. And then my brother comes sometimes, but the past 2 years we didn't do it last year, and the year before that my dad wasn't here, but I went with my buddies. But it's always just been kind of a thing we've done since I was old enough to go. I don't know really why we do that. It's kind of dumb. it's it's just a fucking thing to do. We'll go like during the day or in the evening. I mean, going to a strip club on Christmas at night is like that's kind of fucked. But I don't know, man. I mean, I don't get my son on Christmas, so I occupy my time, man. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah, that's one of the benefits of having divorced parents is that a married dad is not bringing his son to the strip club on a major holiday. So that is that is a yeah, no federal holidays at the strip club with a married father.
Federal holiday.
Yeah. My dad'll take me, on a Tuesday, but Yom Kippur, Christmas, fucking Labor Day, no chance.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's I don't know. There's not much else to say about it. We just go on Christmas, and I mean, I used to go to the strip club all the time, dude. I was in there like every other day of the week because I did a lot of business meetings in there. A lot of people with money will go to the strip club, man. And
You have your own desk, your cubicle at the side of the strip club.
I got actually, I'll show you my wallet up here. I don't have my wallet on me, but I've got a black card to the strip club. I just fucking show them at the door and they let me in. They when I go during the day, the door girl at the club here in town will say, "Mr. Faust, I haven't seen you in a while." But no, it's a good time, dude. I know the day manager over there, and it's just a hang during the day. Honestly, the food's actually pretty good. And I know that sounds fucking stupid, but the food at the strip clubs here in Austin is actually really good. It's not just like that's not just bullshitting, you know. And I used to hang out with like a lot of strippers, and do like podcasts and stuff with strippers, and they're fun to hang out with. But it's that's not the greatest environment to be in. So I've kind of
Yeah.
reeled it in, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to my first weekend in Austin, Texas with a Kill Tony and going to the red rose or the yellow rose and just
Yes.
fucking, making it a hell of a weekend. Maybe I'll get drugged, maybe I won't. If someone tries to kill me, it's worth it. It's worth it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, thank you, Gary, so much for taking the time to hop on the podcast. It's been a blast, and I know this was a good conversation because literally what we were talking about before, where I looked down and it's like an hour in, and now I'm like, oh shit, it's 2.5 hours. So it's yeah,
Yeah.
we went in a lot of different directions, and I'm glad we did, and thank you again for doing this. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah, dude. Thanks for having me on, man. It was a good talk. Definitely covered some good stuff. Anybody that wants to see any of the stuff that I produce journalistically or even just the podcast stuff I do, it's all on my YouTube channel. It's just Gary Faust. And you can check out my Drunk Uncles podcast with me and Bobby and Laser on Wednesdays I think we put it out at 5-ish. I do the back end external production on that show. It's not shot in my studio anymore because he got his own like custom studio made that's pretty badass with the one of the producers over at Drinking Bros. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah,
them.
yeah, I've checked them out.
Yeah, Giorgio. He does the recording of the pod. But it's a good time, man. We just hang out. It's all just us bullshitting. It's not none of it needs to be taken too seriously, like I was saying earlier. But yeah, me and Bobby and Laser are all best friends, and we're just like a three-headed monster, dude. We're all just crazy. You got a wrestler, cowboy, comedian, a psychedelic ketamine musician, and then I'm court case Gary, dude. I'm in court all the time with my shit with my family
Yeah.
law stuff, trying to get the kid back. Speaking of which, I'm probably gonna end up making a fucking GoFundMe or something, and just having all my famous friends share it because, look, man, if you tune into the most recent live stream we did, I talk about it a little bit, but the last time I went to court, I've got nothing for I get no legal rights over my son at all. And there's the court isn't enforcing any sort of visitation or communication between me and my son. And I've been nothing but a good father. So, um, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with all that. It sucks, but that's what I want to leave everybody with. So if anybody gives a shit about me, go check out the GoFundMe I'll have
Yeah,
up in
yeah.
a couple weeks.
Send it through. I'll link it as well. And does the court try to use the podcast stuff against you? Will they play
Oh,
clips
for
and be
sure.
like, "Look at this fucking dude getting fucked up with these dudes on a podcast," even though it's for entertainment value? They use that against you.
Yeah, I mean they tried to paint me as like a fucking drug addict, as a whoremonger. At one point, they said I was pimping women out of my house. I mean, it's fucking crazy. And the judge is totally complicit with all this. I don't have a lawyer, so like my son's mother has her parents have money, and she got a really nice, expensive lawyer, and I just get railroaded every time I go. I'm at the point now where I'm like wondering why I even show up for court because every time I go, I just get fucked. Like
Yeah,
it's insane. It is insane to me that a judge would ever consider taking a child away from his father like this. I mean, I live in Texas, so it's already difficult, and they're making it like literally impossible. But hey, you know what? That's the way the courts work, man. Family courts don't like fathers. They don't give a shit about fathers, and that's just the way it is, dude. But I'm just gonna keep fighting to get my boy back because you know, he's awesome. He's a funny little kid. Dude, he looks, talks, walks, acts just like me. He's just Mexican, just tan. it's
future
it's actually kind
co-host.
of a yeah. Well, hey, dude, if he ever wanted to follow my footsteps and work on with my mom and I with the production company, he's more than welcome. But if he wants to do something more serious in his life, or even just be like a fucking carpenter or something, fuck it, dude. I just want him to be happy. I want to have a good relationship with him, and hopefully I'll be able to we'll be able to fix that situation because right now it's really not going. It's not. There's no justice there. It's really bad, and it's really
Yeah,
hurting him more than it's hurting anybody else. Because I'm a grown man and I've come to terms with what's going on. So he just doesn't understand. So I talk to him and I'll be like, hey, dude, I want to be in your life. If you don't see me around, it's not because I'm not wanting to be around. I love you and I want to I want to be there and watch you grow up and help you learn stuff. And I was in his life all the time consistently until like 2.5 years ago. And basically, long story short, baby mama saw a podcast I did with a porn star and got upset and just pulled the plug.
Oh, I mean, if my girlfriend saw me do a podcast with a porn star, she'd be like, my baby's blown up. He's fucking he's on his way.
Well,
He's getting
dude,
more listeners, dude. I feel like
we
she should be proud of you.
well
Shooting the shit with a
we weren't
porn
even
star.
we weren't even we weren't even really dating. That's the other thing. We weren't even dating anymore. So like, why the fuck did she care at all? But it is what it is, dude. But anyways, dude, just to end with that on that terribly sad note.
Yeah. Look, it's gonna turn into a positive. If you're everyone listening to this, let's help Gary get his kid back. Go check out the YouTube channel. Go check out the podcast. I'm gonna link all the things that we mentioned in the show notes and on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. And again, thank you so much for doing this. I feel like we could, record 10 of these conversations and they would be different and entertaining each time. So
Yeah,
uh,
dude. Whenever you want me, to, man. Whenever, I'm always
I'm
down.
definitely making plans to come and visit Austin, Texas, because I've heard too much about it, and I'm a huge fan of Kill Tony, and I know you've also been involved with a lot of comedians and with that show as well. So I
Yeah.
definitely got to make my way down and check it out. So maybe next time we'll do this in person.
Fuck yeah. All right, brother. Thank you, man.
See you, Gary.